Welcome to another special rock and roll March edition on this heat wave. Another heat wave warning. I guess this is the 6th. This one's gonna last a few more days. I started today, so from the announcement, but when I left it was 30 degrees, but always got a rock and roll for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, the welders, the grocery store clerks. Got that backpack, so ready to go a little bit in the sun. Let's see. Oh yeah, sun hits hard, and oh yeah, definitely 30 degrees feels more, and gotta stay hydrated, gotta say my gratitude, grateful, thankful. Rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got paid also my phone bill, so I haven't paid my phone bill, my electricity bill, my rent. Today it is, of course, August 7th. Marching in the sun a little bit. Actually gonna do a lot of marching in the sun, not just a bit, because you know we go on that overtime, and it's really hot, and I like it. I actually love it and enjoy it. You know, the heat. I don't mind the heat. It's something which I don't mind at all, actually. Kind of turn my head left and right when I cross the street, even if there's a stop sign, because you never know. Sometimes, you know, the citizen drivers might press the accelerator instead of the brake, and things that of that nature might happen, and assuming that the brakes are highly functionable, we always gotta double check and be prudent. And you know, I'm just gonna circumvent on the other side. There's a youth, so I just wanna, so I got the backpack, so I wanna pass safely, cross safely in it. And hot day today, it's really good, and it's really something good, and so I'm gonna get drilling for those who are now trucking, for the truckers, the bakers, the nurses, the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, all those firefighters. Gotta salute it across the 10, the 50, and the 3. That is for the 63 always. For the North American Collectif, encouraging all to work out, train, exercise. Working out, train, exercising has been, is, and will be my medicine and therapy of choice. And I got my laundry done, got some emails done. I sent a few emails, few responses, and always open for business work. This is gonna be a special vlog, as my, of course, vlogs are marching, dancing, and that rock and roll 24/7. The firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians. My Pope, the King, the Sun doesn't need me marching, because said, hey, I always rise and always set every second there's a sunrise and a sunset. And now we're just gonna go meet, straight heading for a address, trying to find an address. And I think we're gonna take a route which we rarely take, as you know, because of my neurological mental condition known as Asperger's. I have my routines, ritualized like routines, when most of the time we go to my second home, the mountain, Mount Royal, sometimes to the river, and we kind of change a little bit of the different routes which we go, different ways which we go, but we keep on going to the mountain, and we're gonna keep on going to the mountain and forever, I guess, in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. And of course, that is something which I encourage you all now to work out, train, exercise. And if you see there's a lion, Lion, just like I got a lion bag. Thank you, my anonymous friend who donated this great bag. And by the way, I'm auctioning everything that I'm wearing, you know, raise some money, raise some funds from my dream. My only stress now is actually financial stress. My only stress now is financial, and of course I love to see those couples there holding hands and hugging there. It always gives me some hope, you know, some acts of affection, public affection, you know. You can kiss, you can hug, you can pet each other, and hug and kiss, and you know, within certain limits, of course, but that's what I love to see. I prefer to see with that, and that always brings me some joy, and that is something which I love to see, and that gives me also hope, you know. And I guess you're allowed to get a little bit of that loving, and you gotta love those firefighters. Somebody make some good loving to the firefighters, the butchers, the truckers, the electricians. We love our train conductors, we love our butchers, we love our bakers, we love our firefighters, you know. And ambulance workers, construction workers. We gotta have some LOVE, you know, it's not all about the money. And here's we're gonna fuse Canada and United States tough times, and the tariffs have just kicked in again. The increasing of the tariffs creating market economic financial turmoil, and of course I know a lot about market economic financial turmoil myself. I've been, of course, in a financial stressful situation up and down, and sometimes I get employments, get jobs, but you know, with less Aspies, people who have Asperger's, or it's not a disease. Once again, I am not a disease, and just gotta watch here the cars to cross prudently. But just, of course, I will discuss this neurological mental divergent condition with which I live with, because it's super important for me to discuss it. Though, of course, to the discussion at hand, it is super important because I'm an individual, sovereign citizen who's an Aspie, and I'm part of this tiny small minority. I always gotta turn my head left and right because you never know. Sometimes they might come fast, and what if it presses the accelerator? You know, if somebody presses the accelerator while driving, then I guess by mistake you can happen to have that confluence. So these are the possibilities which can always happen. Of course, egg whites. Wow, somebody left egg whites. There's some lentils. I'm just gonna take the bread. Gonna leave the other stuff. I don't know what this is. I guess breadcrumbs, maybe for some use. Is that nuts? I don't know what that is. Oh, I'm not sure. I'm just gonna take the bread. The bread is always useful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm grateful, thankful for farmers, butchers, and those bakers. Always gonna be grateful for the bakers. Get some bread in it, and get some bread with that, and that's what we gotta get drilling on that, and we gotta get on those dynamics, you know, because this is the bread right here, so that's always a plus. I'm just gonna bag it up, and you know, you can make some sandwiches. Thank you for contributing to my food security a little bit, whoever you are, XYZ. You know, it's something which we have to come to, of course, fully understand. You know, that having food security is such an important part of our collective civilizational complex, and I gotta give some shout out to the public workers who are gonna pick up the garbage. Please give a little bit of give them some massages, therapy session, finance them. There you go, a massage therapy session right there, which you can finance them. Mayonnaise, BNS, those there. See that just passed with the big garbage collectors, the sanitation workers of the 10 provinces, 3 territories, and 50 states for the 63, you know. Time for Wall Street to finance some spa recreational facilities. And me, I just took a bath, so I recompensated. I wish I could afford a massage therapy session myself, but any volunteers, Rainbow Dragon could use a massage, you know. Here it is. For more than 7 years I wanted to go here, but hey, can't afford it. So 483-5586, 483-5586, 483-5586, 483-5586, 483-5586. And you got this beautiful garden. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate this beautiful garden here. Always quadruples my smile. It's always something which I enjoy, you know, the smiling on the face, and puts a smile on my face and gives me some joy, and that's all super important for me to acknowledge that. I'm just gonna bag this and continue with that rock and roll dictations. Make sure I bag it properly so I don't lose it. I'd rather be using it, you know, and losing it, so that's always something which is good to go for me. Always something which I have to, of course, navigate and do and be and think, and of course relate to my fellow neurotypicals. Huge are 99.56%. And we always gotta build bridges, eh? We always gotta build bridges with each other. Sometimes the bridges can be small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, or extra large bridges. We have to build bridges myself, as an N.A.C.P. is a neurotypical. I always have to build bridges with you, the 99.56%, because having Asperger's, being an N.A.C.P., also known as HFA, high functioning autism, HFA, means that I am part of this tiny small fraction of the population, which is less than 1%, less than half of a percentile even. It's about 0.44%. 0.44% of the population has Asperger's syndrome. It's known as a syndrome, and not N.O.T. Please, please, please. It's not a disease. I'm not a disease. I'm not a disease. I'm not a disease. I'm not a disease unless I sing for the kisses on the rainbow, please. I love that rock and roll. I guess I could write a song and I'm a disease for rock and roll, but Asperger's is not a disease. And favorite color right there, got a boogie woogie, 2 doors, what a beauty. And an N.A.C.P, it's a Mustang. An N.A.C.P, if an N.A.C.P special interest, beautiful, beautiful. If an N.A.C.P special interest would be, of course, cars, automobiles, or science, technology, he will be able to talk for hours and hours and discuss about the internal dynamics and what those towers there, I think they're 4G, and some of them look like they're thicker, smaller ones, they're even 5G. There might be even still some 3Gs and 4G and 5G together, but definitely 4G and I think even 5G are there on the towers. And if an N.A.C.P would have that special interest, an N.A.C.P will be able just to know so much detail about the inner workings, all the metals, all the weight, the characteristics, the statistics, the technical details about that cell phone tower, and we'll be able to just stand here and talk for hours and hours and hours and hours about that specific, and of course we'll be able also to talk for hours and hours and hours about the cars as well. So that is Asperger's. Asperger's, we have special interests, and we have also some problems. Mostly myself, my only problem now is, of course, economic, financial. Besides economic, financial, commercial problems, although I say my gratitude because I have paid my rent, so I got that doing there, and that's just something which I need to explore. And as I love to salute the train conductors, and my special interests, the Holy Trinity, is geopolitics, and I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, and strategist. Rock and roll with geopolitics and sports and fitness, dancing. Dancing is my favorite sport. Dancing is my favorite sport. Dancing is my favorite sport. So dancing, I love to dance, and I dance for hours, can write and sing freestyle mode rock and roll songs as I channel them. Morning, afternoon, now I can do on the spot freestyle rock and roll, because I can just create them freestyle mode, and I can also have hundreds of them, some written down on USB keys and different portfolios and rock and roll related and geopolitics. And I take a lot of pride in my geopolitical work, independent geopolitical work, to the point that I'm going to say that I predicted what's happening now in 2019, but I gotta also mark and say that what I did not predict is the current deterioration of relations with the USA. And this Canadian Quebecer got that Canada flag tatted up there. Don't ask me when I got it, probably decades ago, because I also have retrograde amnesia, memory loss. I have problems. There's a blackout of my memory before 2014, spring 2014. So I have problems accessing my memory to prior to 2014 spring, and I thought I moved here where I live now in 2016. It ends up it was 2015, but my memory is prior to spring 2014. I used to live in Côte des Neiges in a moldy underground type of prison type of cell where there's lots of mold, like a small type of prison cell, lots of mold, and I have problems remembering my memories, recalling my life prior to 2014, spring 2014. So let's say prior to like April, March, February. My spring starts in about February, so March, February, spring equinox. So February 2014, then before that it's like a blackout. I don't know if I was a junkie, Was I a junkie? Doing hard drugs or alcoholism sometimes. Alcohol, can cause memory loss. Too much alcohol for a few years, alcoholism can cause memory loss. So whatever the case may be, I moved, and I was depressed, suicidal. This is something with touches, beautiful yellow flowers right there. Just love those yellow flowers. What? You know me, I love yellow flowers, so whenever I see them, I get a little bit of smiley joy. So whatever the case may be, whatever my life was prior to that moment, sometimes the memory comes back and I just remember I was attacked by surprise. I still have to go to retrieve the archives from the Jewish General Hospital because I was attacked by surprise. Watch for the child. Let me get out of the way. Take a few steps to the right so that it's all yours, buddy. Can do that fitness sport in peace and tranquil. So I was attacked by surprise, a vicious surprise attack. I fell, I hit my head on the concrete and I was like bloodied up. And I went to the Jewish General Hospital. My right arm, my right shoulder, was replaced. Was cracked back. Well, not replaced per se, prosthetics, but it was replaced, But cracked back actually, not replaced by prosthetics. I didn't lose the arm. I guess in many ways I did. It was like a dislocated right arm, very dislocated, and it cracked back and I was put on some meds. So I have to go retrieve that. I have to go, of course, for my other scars, and I don't need a lot of support. I live with my scars, my trauma, and it's unspeakable deeds hated against me, but I'm pretty joyous, happy. At least it was a tough road to become, because for a few years I was depressed, suicidal, and depression and suicidal rates for Aspies is also 9 times more. So depression and suicidal rates for Aspies is 9 times more than for you, the majority of the population, the neurotypicals. 9 times. And of course, depression and suicidal rates are 9 times, and unemployment is 11 times. It's very high. It's way too high. For Aspies, the unemployment stands at 80%. That's 4/5. 80%. Can you imagine that? 4/5, 80%. This is something which we have to work on. And again, because just 2 days ago, I went with my anonymous friend. We saw a movie, and of course, afterwards we went a little bit of shopping. I had on a budget. I stayed within budget by a few dollars, and of course, what was happening is we had a discussion. And I mentioned that I have Asperger's and I'm a bit weird and these points, and he said, yeah, I know what Asperger's is. It's a disease. And I said, no. And then he said, it's a disease. And I said, no. I said, okay, it's a neurological. I said, yes, exactly. It's a neurological divergent condition. It's not a disease. There's more and more work being done, but of course there's still work to be done. And us Aspies, sometimes we can be very vulnerable. So I got to think of some things, because certain things we just don't understand. So I got to give a shout out to my anonymous friend for a book which was gifted. A book which was gifted to yours truly, and that book, of course, which was gifted, it's called, well, actually rented 4 times because it was a library loan. It's called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. And of course, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome was also coupled with 2 books which are gifted generally on autism. But this one, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, is unique that it had taught me about myself, because myself for years and years and years I didn't want to accept it. It's been like more than 9 years. Several individuals, several citizens have been diagnosing me in many ways, and said, you have Asperger's, you have HFA, this is your condition, and this is, and I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to accept the label, because I don't want to be a label, although it's something which of course is an integral part of who I am, an integral part of how I look at the world. So we see Aspies, we see the world in a different manner, sometimes very weirdly. We just don't get certain social unwritten rules, unwritten norms. Those unwritten norms of society, they can be very difficult for us. We don't fully understand them per se as somebody who is not a neurotypical would understand. So we would have to be told more directly, and we can be pretty direct ourselves. And sometimes we don't mean to offend, of course, but it's just the way that we are, So we don't mean to offend maliciously by volition, to offend or to cause, but sometimes we can be very direct and offensive. It can be offensive because we might respond in such a way. We might be very direct, straightforward, and blunt. with certain things, when asked certain things, or in certain ways, but that's just how it is for myself as an individual sovereign citizen with Asperger's and my other fellows who are part of this tiny small minority of a community. So our communications can sometimes be very strange, awkward, peculiar. Sometimes an ASPE could use too much functional academic intellectual language, which is not proponent for the propositions where we are endeavored ourselves to be in that specific characteristics, whence we might explain in the situation or the, for example, for me, if I discuss geopolitics, I might have to reduce the amount of technical, academic, scholarly, sophisticated intellectual words for it to be more effective or efficient in relation to the usage of terminologies and expressions which are not necessarily useful, so or conducive for proper understanding or reaching a resolution or an entente, if you will. So those are characteristics and traits, again, not symptoms of Asperger's. Asperger's is not a disease. I'm not a disease. It's not symptoms for Asperger's. Characteristics and traits such as repetition of words or phrases, echolalia, we might say exactly word for word, verbatim per verbatim, exactly the same sentence or phrase that somebody says. It's not because we want to imitate or mock or anything like that. It's just the brain has these mutations, right? The ASPE brain is different. So due to these tiny minority, small at the micro transistor type of level, think about the transistors at a nano microscopic level, right? So due to these mutations, the ASPE brains are different, and thus we are different in how we process and research the certain social interactions, and it's just very difficult for us in certain social circumstances, and thus we suffer, like myself included, from isolation, from lack of employment. I had many jobs, and many Aspies have jobs. It's just keeping them because we're different, right? So then the majority of the other people might say that it's a disease, and which you're not well enough acquainted with Asperger's, you might a lot of people make mistakes. The vast majority of the population, since it's so rare, and there's certain characteristics, for example, and as for example, taking an object in the store and looking at it very closely, very intentionally, inspecting details on it, which somebody else might say, hey, what's going on? Say, hey, that's weird, that's awkward. That might be an ASPE doing that, as I do that. And I usually check grams, where it's made from, and I've been doing this for years and years and years and years, even before the current trade war myself. Now I guess more and more people are doing it because of the conditions in the trade war, but that's just how it is with us Aspies. We might have certain pronouncements which might be too academic, too scholarly, intellectual, and have a level of more sophistication and use of philosophical, cosmopolitan language that is not really required or necessary in the terms of being less formal, what I meant to say, or more in such a manner. So please, if you come here, don't pollute. Don't leave that there. Oh, I just saw, see, this has to be recycled. I don't mind you, like, this is a place for preservation, so I don't mind if you enjoy whatever. See, I would inspect, I would look at those numbers, for example. So I would look at those details. CAN G, line GR1 to CA, line 05 AGUBF. So I would really want to focus on that detail. See? That detail. And I would wonder what that is, because it's a label classification. And I would actually want to know what that is, and even the other numbers that are there for the classification. If you see those details, what I just mentioned about Asperger's, that would be one right there. And it's good that it's made in Canada. Love it, but made in Canada, got that Canada tatted up, but it's always for the 10, the 50, and the 3 for our coming empire together. But of course, it has to be. So an ASPE, maybe I would go like this, just to, would inspect this object, I would go like this. So I'll try to think about that number and look at that specific small detail there, that number, and some other would just say I didn't even notice, but that's what it is with that, and that's what it is for the go. So that's just just the aspiness, you know, just the aspiness, you know. That's Asperger's, you know. That's one of the traits, one of the many traits of Asperger's would be inspecting these numbers there and inspecting objects in a store very closely to the face, to the body, just very close to the eyes, you know. So I do that a lot. And if you see somebody doing that, that person might be an Aspie. I don't mind if I give permission to people to laugh. I laugh at my own Aspie clumsiness and all the pain, the suffering that I've suffered, struggled, depression, suicidal, and lack of employment and isolation and all that. But now I'm joyous, you know, and I'm pretty happy, and except for the financial stress, and this is a place we're trying to preserve, and super important that you do your part, please, and just don't leave trash and cans. These could be recycled, and it's super important to recycle. And it's a cutie there. Somebody be careful with the fire, because we try to avoid having too much pollution here. We try to keep it at a minimum, you know, and we try, of course, to not pollute. So we try to just clean. Maybe next time I pass here, I'm gonna bring a bag, because I saw a whole pile of mess there, a whole pile of mess. I don't have any space to carry it in, so if I just take it in a hand, I'm just gonna keep on dropping it, and maybe once a week I'm gonna pass with a black bag here and just take whatever, because I do it at the mountain anyway. So it's a responsibility. The nature we have trying to preserve, and that's why we're in the public. So I have myself added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, you know, which I don't have under the normal circumstances. Ouais, je te laisse passer. Merci. Désolé. Toi aussi pareil, man. So I let him pass here. I said thank you, and I said, you're welcome. That's it. My fellow cousin there on the bike, his exercise is important, and that's why we have to get, you know, to get each other's wavelengths and frequencies, because I'm in the public, so I have, and he has, my cousin, or whatever the identification XYZ has, it is the compromise which we got to make, which is for myself and for the other, for me and for the other, for me and for the other, you know. It's always a give, it's always a give and take, it's always a mutual relations, it's always responsibilities, duties, and obligations, and of course obligations, duties, and rights, but also responsibilities, duties, and obligations, as of course we have in different points in our lives, as we're now in the public. And myself, of course, I had to make sure, of course, that my fellow citizens are, of course, well, and myself are well, and that's all we got. And here we're gonna go towards the sun. That feels so good, and it feels so good to get a little bit of that sunshine. Always get a little bit of that sun. It's so nice. And you get into the sun, and I always feel good. This is one of my favorite spots, you know. My favorite spots to come, and besides the mountain, of course, to come and just enjoy nature, but even during the winter, you know. That is a little bit of yellow flowers, and that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on that, man. These and they are beautiful as well. So finalizing on Asperger's, because I want to get to geopolitics, because that's what I'm good at, that's what I know, and that's how I rock and roll. But it's not a mental illness, it's not an illness, it is a neurological mental divergent condition. There's no medication for Asperger's, and we have three main problems. But mainly caused by isolation and lack of friends and lack of social understanding. And there's more progress being done in the 21st century, but it dates from the 20th century. And this was controversial a bit. I still have to watch the documentary to make my own mind, because I'm not convinced that Asperger's is an evolutionary step. So supposedly, according to an ABC documentary, Asperger's is an evolutionary process. That's why there's not a lot of people with Asperger's, and supposedly those mutations of the brain and how we are, it's an evolutionary process. Evolution. It's a evolutionary step. So we're from Aspies, from neurotypicals, you the 99.56%, us the 0.44%. We're that next step in human evolution. And I don't know about that, to be honest. I have to really watch the documentary again to take the propositions and really make the really more research and into the neurological mental divergent capacities of what Asperger's is and what Asperger's is not, to really arrive to that conclusion. But there's a lot of support by several neurologists and neuroscientists and psychiatrists even and psychologists who support that. It's ABC's documentary. It says Asperger's, something, the title is Asperger's, the next step towards human's evolutionary process. Now that's still for me. I'm not gonna pronounce myself that yes, because evolution, all the struggle, the pain that I endured, I guess, the isolation, the losing jobs, and I had many jobs in the past years, but of course only lasted 4 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, 1 week, 4 days. So yeah, and that's Aspies. We have 3 main problems: lack of friends, and from now on I don't will to waste nobody's time, so just it's 7th of August 2025, friends with benefits only. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. It's friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. Legio, legions, dollar family. Friends with benefits only, you know. Friends with benefits only. The other problem is high depression and suicidal rates. High depression and suicidal rates is 9 times higher than the neurotypical. So I've been depressed, I've been suicidal. What got me out of depression was crossing Canada coast to coast. When I crossed Canada coast to coast in 2017, August 15th is the moment when we departed, of course, by bus. We departed by bus, of course, in August 15, 2017. That was the date me and my friend we went out west, and 3.5 days by the bus. By bus, and of course by bus. And that's what it is with that, by bus. Of course we went by bus. And it took us 3.5 days. 3.5 days by bus. 3.5 days by bus. And coming back 3.5 days. So, and then in September we went in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So 2017, summer 2017 is gonna be 8-year celebration soon. I still got the tickets. I'm gonna auction them for $1 million to give half 50% to my anonymous friend. Got those tickets, and that event made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, and that got me out of being depressed and suicidal. Because for like 3 years, I was depressed, I was suicidal for like 3 years. I guess from summer 2014 to 2017. So yeah, hard battles. I've been rock bottom, been down and out, and, you know, been rock bottom, man. Hard not, almost took my lights out. Yeah, no joke, no playing. It was hardcore, like wars, you know. It's like fighting wars, and who's into fighting for the cause of freedom, war. Very few of us are. Black, white, rainbow. Nobody's born a dragon is the motto of the Dragon Army. You know what I'm saying. Very few of us are. Freedom is a dangerous thing, you know. Freedom gotta be insured. It comes responsibilities, duties, obligations. Then you have, you know, it's the privilege of civilization. Because if we go down to the freedom of nature, then it's, you know, another way, and then is cratocracy, you know, cratocratic, which I guess we have to have some other ways of quantifying merit, and comes ethics and morality and their higher self. And I don't pretend to be without flaws, without vices. I have, and I have my scars, I have my trauma. But that's the 3 main things which Aspies face the most problem. Lack of friends, for me, I said friends with benefits only, and high depression and suicidal rates. which I lived, and crossing Canada coast to coast 2017, and really made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Quebecers, Canadians, and my brothers and sisters in the USA, because I'm also a mystic, not only an artist, athlete, and philosopher, but a mystic who knows his reincarnations, and 3 of those post 7076 were in the USA, once as a woman, twice as a man. You just gotta read Through a Glass Darkly, one of my favorite poems by George Patton, and served in the same United States Armed Forces, 156 years apart. 2 different wars, same US Army, established circa 250 years ago. And as I march now at the beginning of this elongated heat wave, I guess it's gonna be 6 days or so, today and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, up to Wednesday, so maybe we'll see, I guess. And depression, suicidal rates, and high unemployment. The employment rate for Aspies, my tiny small community, is 80%, 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10. It's totally unacceptable. The problem is we have employment, just keeping them, because socializing is more difficult for us, you know? It's more difficult for us. And then you have the question of autistic and Aspies masking the Asperger's, masking the autism, you know, which when I am an artist and I rock and roll, then I got that artistic work, so I dedicated to that work, or geopolitics, that is work, but in the interactions in a social manner can become more difficult for us due to those brain mutations. But now when it comes to our special interests, there we can excel, and Aspies have to be encouraged and supported as much as you can. I don't need a lot of support myself. It's just that due to the special interests, for me is rock and roll, geopolitics, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport. Those special interests really preoccupy, beautiful yellows, really kind of orangey and the dark yellow. Those special interests, also known as obsessive interest, really preoccupy our activities, our daily routines and ritual-like routines, to the point of seeming like an obsession. But an obsession is more for you than neurotypicals. For us, it's special interest, although we seem to be, and we are super intense, super concentrated, super engaged, super dedicated when we are either working, studying, learning, or engaged in our special interests. So that's why me, for years and years and years, you see marching, working out, training, exercising, and rock and roll, and marching for hours, videos, and long workouts. It's sports and fitness workouts, and rock and roll and geopolitics 24/7. Even now, because I cross by the terrain here where there's trucks and where's the highways going east and west, that we're heading west now. Right now we're heading west. Camera's pointing west. That's west. That's north. That's south. And in the back of me is the east. So knowing that the highways and the infrastructure and the security and the transport is integral part of our geopolitical security, right? Because if you think about the truckers and those are railways, my brain always switches in the functionality of integrating this point event now with me being an Aspian independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, and strategist, who again has predicted. I have proof of work. I have proof of a video in 2019, October, November. I created also a workout training program system to go with such a scenario. The scenario was a World War III scenario. I predicted an international conflagration is going to come in the horizon. I predicted this, what we can call 2025, second Trump administration, plus the Ukraine war post-COVID, because I had COVID. I thought I was going to die between March. It was actually started feeling sick about around mid-February to late March. I guess it lasted for like 44 days, with a few days very intensely. When I got triple vaxxed, I got vaccinated, but when I started feeling sick, it wasn't in the news. It wasn't in the news because it was COVID, coronavirus. Only later it started. So a few days later, I guess. So I guess I had it right at the beginning of it. I survived. I credited my survival to the goddess. Nothing that I will to go back to. I changed a lot, and this is my fourth change. My only change now would be economic, financial, and that would be the greatest change for me. Economic, financial, commercial. That would be really the greatest change. And see now how my brain works. I see this point event there. I know that that truck is going west. I don't know what the truck's carrying. It might be carrying bacon, cheese, romaine lettuce, milk, or other goods. Maybe not edible goods, consumer goods, maybe other goods, but nonetheless, the others, all across the 10, the 50, and the 63 across the North American Collective, are carrying important things for the continuing of our North American civilizational complex, and even the railway. So now, I always integrate this point event in my life with all my strategies and developments, of which, of course, the Trinity of theories, the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, the DRT, Death Fusion Theory, and the DFT, the Democratic Fusion Theory, for the North American Collective. And gotta salute the public workers who built all the highways and all the trains, and as we're gonna move, and calling all, of course, to support my dream. Friends with benefits only, or about my work. And Aspies, we got 3 problems: lack of friends. The solution for me is friends with benefits, or pledge your allegiance to our family. Support the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, which is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership for fusing Canada and the United States into a complex for total S, total security, total service, SSD, plus emergency responses, because you see that Mother Nature's giving us a lot of slaps recently. I haven't seen a storm like I have seen hit New York, where there was flooding inside the metro system, and gotta be grateful for that, because civilization is a privilege. And of course, we got our brothers and sisters all across the 63, and we got the truckers trucking maybe miles, hundreds of miles, thousands of miles, something which we have to be mindful of. And we got the sanitation workers with a big bang sanitation workers, and we got this big metropolis city, big metropolis. We got this big metropolis, Montreal, island of the Hawk, H-A-W-K. We gotta have some justice and some second, third, even fourth chances, and we have to get it on the go now. And sometimes that's just what we have to do, and we have to appellate and co-equivalate of all, of course, our civilizational complexes, daily habits and routines of all our citizens, and citizens who are different like me, and all my brothers and sisters, who are different and who have diversity. And sometimes we have racism, which is subconscious, or discrimination against people who are different than us subconsciously. We're not fully aware even, right? A person might have racist subconscious feelings but not even be aware of them. So we have to work with my brothers and sisters who are black, and I would definitely not reserve to employ or give charity or make some good living. If you're black, you're white, you're rainbow, you're a man, you're a woman. I am also androgynous, pansexual, and gotta salute those garbage collectors, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, those in the daycares changing some of those diapers. And Aspie 3 problems is lack of employment or keeping employment. 80% is unacceptable of unemployment rate. The unemployment rate parallel with the high suicidal ideations and feelings, that's also very elevated, and that's also something which is unacceptable. And oh yeah, it hits hard. This is the lion. Month of the lion is supposed to be until August 23rd, so that's why its heat wave is going to be probably the strongest, eh? And of course we got the full moon coming this weekend. So I'm also a mystic. I believe in reincarnation. Sometimes was born a man, a woman a man. I was George Patton's wife, and he was my wife in past lives. He also believed in previous incarnations and past lives. And now I'm gonna go put where these belong, in the recycling bin. These belong in the recycling bin right there, because you got the recycling and you got the garbage. See, you got both hand by hand. So you have to just make a little bit of citizen action. And this is the recycling, right? This is where the recycling goes. So I hope there's no trash there, and I hope there's no recycling in there. Oh yeah, those bags, people, please recycle the bags. See, that's why we need the dancing goddess army. See, the bags, those bags, you empty the bag there with the garbage, but you put that bag in the recycling. Please, please, please. Every time I look into a garbage bin, there's something which can be recycled. That's why we need the Dancing Goddess Army to be in the big cities, to patrol and for Mother Nature. Because if we don't do our individual part in recycling, then we have to do also the individual. It takes the individual action, and the collective, is something which is fundamentally has to be in equilibrium. Right, the individual. And I'm not perfect. I just took my compost out, and of course I worked on the compost. I worked on the compost in 2018, and between September 2018 and March 2019, something like that, for like 4 months. I was employed like on a contract, and I had many jobs myself. It's just keeping them. And now, of course, it's Pledge Your Allegiance and our family, and we're going. It's a bit on a heat wave beginning, I guess, and gonna discuss geopolitics, because that's what I'm good at, and that's what I excel, and that's of course my special interest. And I'm an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist who's gonna check out a bit of this train. And this is a passenger train, and we're open for sabotage and espionage now. We made powerful enemies, and of course I predicted this. What I did not predict, and I have to be straightforward so that we understand each other, I did not predict, and this alarms me, the deterioration of relations with the US. The deterioration of relations with the US, I did not predict. So I did not predict the deterioration of relations with the United States, nor a trade war with the United States. I did not predict a deterioration of relations with the United States. That I did not predict. I predicted a general international conflagration, aka World War III, but of course I did not predict that there's gonna be this unprecedented situation with the United States, that is going to be a trade war, and that this alarms me. This gives me shivers when I discuss it, and gives me shivers because it's serious. And of course the serious problems which we're facing now is that since last Friday we're designated as an unprecedented, an extraordinary threat due to the fentanyl is increasing, crossing the border. Of course, it's not necessarily justified that the fentanyl is increasing, but we have to say, and I have to state, of course, that the RCMP in their documents, they had warned us for years and years and years and years that there's a growing transnational criminal syndicates operating and taking root across Canada. And if you look in the RCMP's documents, and of course in the news, you see that October 24th, 2024. So last year, October 24th, the RCMP in BC, Surrey, BC, they had seized the biggest drug producing super lab ever, a super lab. They of course dismantled and seized 95 million fentanyl capsules, or whatever the fentanyl products are. I guess it's like a little capsule. Fentanyl, 95 million, which could have killed the population of Canada twice over. So it is true that domestic production of fentanyl has been increasing, and it is increasing. So that part, although I'm no Trump supporter, I would have voted for Biden, Kamala, but I'm a centrist, pro-labor revolutionary, universal revolutionary centrist. My centrism, of course, has to be clarified what my centrism, democratic republicanism is, because it's a centrist where it's integral with my Trinity of theories, and the fact that geopolitically I predicted what's happening now back in 2019 in October, November, and my theories are therefore their implementation, which will launch a mass public-private partnership, a mass across the North American collective, is fundamentally a centrist. But it's a fusion, a centrist and North American centrist fusion is related to our North American reality, and the fact that we are a North American collective, a civilizational complex, which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. So the RCMP has warned us for years and years and years and years already now that there's a growing transnational criminal syndicate organizations which are taking root across Canada. And that lab, the biggest ever super lab, The biggest ever super lab, which was stopped, dismantled, and of course which they seized, and they found October 24th last year, October 24th of last year, was the biggest ever. And it produced millions of fentanyl drugs. I guess they're pills or whatever. I don't do drugs myself. I don't know if I did drugs before spring 2014. Maybe I was a junkie, but my memory before that era, so that's already long ago in history, right? Because that's 11 plus years. 11 years and more than 4 months. It's more than 11 years and 4 months. Almost 11 and a half is going to be soon. I guess September, whenever. So, more important is my work. Now, when all my theories, my Trinity theory specifically, the CIT Citizen Integration Theory, the DRT Debt Fusion Theory, and the DFT, the Democratic Fusion Theory, which I'm calling for its implementation across the North American Collective in this 21st century. And here, of course, we made a great linguistic compromise in Quebec, and we continue to do, of course, with the French language, but also it takes an individual effort, and of course, the individual effort parallel and coupled with, of course, the other efforts of the collective. It's always a fundamentally give and take, and my only stress for real now is economic, financial, commercial, and what would really make my life much better if I could afford a massage therapy session weekly. That would be great. Twice a week, because I have a very active lifestyle. 3 times a week would be so good. 4 times a week would be great pleasure, and more than every day would be, I would be in heaven. Just half an hour a day would be great on massage therapy, an hour a day. Because I live a very effective, austere, severe, very physically active lifestyle. Because it's my special interest, fitness, and I always meditate when I go on these marches, geopolitics, and create rock and roll songs for a new trucker getting on the road. Maybe he's going to Texas, to Georgia, all the way to California, maybe to the North or South Dakota. But Manitoba, maybe out west, you know that you ain't gotta press that pedal way too much. 110 kilometers on the highway. That is the best way, and that is the way for the kid. I would love to have a song dedicated, rock and roll song to truckers, where truckers can listen to it, like a radio, workers' radio. Let's launch together the North American Collective Workers' Party Radio for Arbeit, 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 Arbeit. I love work myself, but I'm different, you know. So socially, aspects were awkward, where we wouldn't know social conventions too much, or it would be hard for us to, you know. That's why we lose a lot of our jobs, because the socializing aspect is more difficult. So if I am to do the job, whatever is required, just whatever job is required to do the job, that's it. And do the job, do the work, that's it. You know, because the socializing, small talk, stuff like that can be more difficult for us, because we don't get, for example, I'll give you an example. I don't remember, at least because my memory, like I said, from prior to 2014 spring, I have difficulty accessing, remembering, difficulty accessing, remembering, difficulty accessing, remembering, you know, accessing or remembering the life, whatever the case may be, and that's my wish and will is for my work, you know, my work to do it now, you know, the work and to do it now, the work which you have to do now, and of course, especially since I predicted what's happening now, we have to take it seriously, and especially the geopolitical situation, and we have to, as much as I don't fully support peace through strength, I support it 50%, 50, but because it has to be counterbalanced by love and understanding also, because peace through strength, yes, I understand it, I support it 50%, 50-50, but I cannot fully support it. 50-50 I support it. I cannot fully support it because, of course, the support of the 50-50 is, of course, the dictum that it has to be counterbalanced. My philosophy is that it has to be counterbalanced by love and understanding. by love and understanding. So my way to fuse Canada, the true north, strong and free, and the land of the free and the home of the brave, best via my Trinity activities, and of course the creation of the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Draconis, officially the Imperial Republics, the Imperial Republic, Imperial Republic, the Imperial Republic, SSD Legion, Security Service and Defense Legion, SSD Legion, and of course coupled with the Dancing Goddess Army, the Imperial Integrated Dance League for the environmental action and education, and to dance. Dancing is my favorite sport. And let's build a four. My will to build a four, and my will to be buried 1/3 of me in New Jersey, Hampton, with Papa Alistair Crowley. 1/3 of me on the mountain at the back of the Belvedere, Condirnac, and 1/3 of me sent in the city of the pyramids. Send in the city of the pyramids. Send in the city of the pyramids. Send in the city of the pyramids. You know, send it in the city of the pyramids. Send it there. And here we are, heat wave. I don't mind the sun, my Publik king, and we're gonna do a little bit of a different trajectory that we usually do, but we're still gonna do it good, and still gonna do it in, and still gonna get those four built together on the Canadian-US border, the North American peoples, the Imperial Republic's People's Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. And of course the Caesar Superdome before was used to be known as the Mercedes Superdome. Before that it was named Louisiana Superdome, and of course where my 49ers lost one of my top 5 Super Bowls, is the only one that is included in my top 5 favorites Super Bowls of all time, is when my 49ers lost to the Ravens in Super Bowl 47, aka Blackout Ball, aka Bro Ball, aka Hardball Ball, Bro Ball, Blackout Ball, Super Bowl 47. And Forgotten Goddess Temple could be 11 times bigger than the Oratory. And this new Coliseum for sports is in perpetuities, for sports in perpetuity, to be 11 times bigger than that sports arena where many Super Bowls were played. And we're gonna inaugurate it, me and Donald Trump. We're gonna fight in a boxing match. I got those red gloves in my red backpack, and that's the Mountain Mount Royal there. And of course that's where we were yesterday. See, you can see the mountain afar off. You can see it afar off, as you can see, of course, the downtown core of Montreal. That is Montreal downtown, Hawk Island, H-A-W-K, and there you can see it. You can see it right there. That's the mountain, and that's what we have to be doing, and that's what we have to get doing on that love, and that's something which we have to get on the transition side of all the. That's the headquarters of our coming empire, and that's what we gotta do, and that's what we gotta get on the trajectory. And of course that is something which we have to be fully immersed in and fully loving, and build a pyramid. Scarlet and crimsons are shades of red. Build a house of the dragon where I can have open doors, and the Rainbow People's Palace for my fellow LGBTQ community and the neurodivergent community. So those 4 which we will to build, as we're gonna build bridges. So I'm crossing this bridge, as we're gonna build more bridges in Aspies, myself as an individual sovereign Aspie. We gotta build small bridges, medium-sized bridges, and large bridges, or extra large bridges, I guess. And those 4 categories can have other 4 subcategories, just like when you order some coffee, it's small, medium, large, or extra large, or a drink, or fries, small fries, medium fries, large fries, extra large fries. Just so it is like that when you order. That is of course the way which we need to build bridges together, consequently in the appellation of where we are on the go for the side, and for the side of that Beautiful mountain. See, that is the mountain there. You can see it afar off. Mount Royal at the back of the Belvedere there, my second home. Mount Royal. Let's get the Dragon Trump Summit. The king is absent, my brothers and sisters, fellow Canadians. The king is absent. The king is absent. Time for the Republic. The king is absent. The king is absent. Time for the Republic. The king is absent. It's time for the Republic. Pledge your allegiance, legions, to our family, and that's what we do. And you know, it's wow, they're turning red already. We got that red and that green, the color of the dragon army, and the color of the forgotten goddess, the dancing goddess army with the red. House of the Dragon. I gotta tie my hair a bit. Hold on. Oh yeah, auctioning the hair elastic, auctioning my underwears, auctioning my socks, auctioning my shirt. I got it second hand. I got it second hand. I think I paid $4 for it. I wore it, I've been wearing it for at least a few years since COVID, at least 4 years. So I'm gonna auction it for $1 million to give 50% to my anonymous friend who wasn't my friend because of the money. Cross Canada, coast to coast. 2017, got out of depression, suicidalness, and had a few jobs, many jobs, and always open for business. And especially when it comes to my work, I don't want to waste anybody's time. So time is, you know, life, and friends with benefits only. If you got some arbeit, we rock and roll, sports and fitness, dancing, or geopolitics if you want to engage. And now we're going to discuss some theories of mine, which I'm calling for the implementation, and I'm going to go into geopolitics again because that's what I know most, besides some of that good rock and roll. I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. I have proof. What I did not predict is that Canada, we're going to be having a trade war with the United States, and thus I did not predict the deterioration of relations with the United States. And this following statement, which I make and I will make now, you have to accord in the positive, whether you're on the left or on the right, in the center, center left, center right. I'm not discussing far left or far right here. Just center, center left, center right, or right or left. Our main interest, the most important, foreign affairs, not domestic internal affairs at the domestic political social level. But when it comes to foreign affairs, our main interest, and this is reciprocal for the United States vis-a-vis us, our main interest as a priority, as our top priority, has to be for us Canadians and for my brothers and sisters in the USA. What a beautiful truck. In the USA, has to be that as a top priority when it comes to foreign affairs. Reciprocally, we strive to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, defense, security-wise relations with the United States. This statement is a constant. Oh, thank you. That's so nice of that fellow citizen, my cousin or auntie, or the case may be. So nice of you. Thank you so much. I have to make sure that I saw the hand gesture in order for me to pass, you know. just to make sure that even here. So that is a constant. That is not negotiable. You cannot say no to that. You cannot even say maybe to that geopolitical statement. Our main interest, brothers and sisters, Canadians, and my brothers and sisters in the USA, this is reciprocally so, is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, social, cultural, defense relations with each other. See, the mountain is far off. Now you can see it very big now, how it's Mount Royal. So it's to have the best economic, social, financial, social, cultural, military, defense, security relations with each other. And this is reciprocally. So you have to say yes, 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 yes to that. You cannot say no to that. You cannot even say maybe. It has been so for the past 75 years, ever since the dissolution of the British Empire's influence, waning after the Second World War, although our Uncle Carney, our Prime Minister, still pledged allegiance to the King and his heirs. Can you imagine that? No, we got to pledge allegiance to the citizens of our coming empire when we're going to fuse the Constitution for the perpetual Imperial Republican Union. The perpetual Imperial Republican Union. The perpetual Imperial Republican Union. We're going to fuse the 10, the 50, and the 3. And Granddaddy Trump is going to be Dragon versus Trump boxing. And he's a toughie. I would have not voted for you, Granddaddy Trump. You know? And it's not the way. You made a mistake to invite Canada to join fuse with the United States by tariffs, by bullying. Should have been by baking some pies. Throwing the biggest party ever. That's what I want to hear. So when we're going to fuse Canada, we're going to mass finance Sabbaths for 7 years every weekend from Friday to Sunday, so our children can dance in the streets, can visit each other, and learn to become a family. Because we are like a family. Big brother, big sister, little sister. Just like Super Bowl 47. You know? San Francisco could represent, I guess, United States, the dynasty empire, and Baltimore Ravens could have represented Canada in Super Bowl 47, one of my favorites, although my 49ers lost. That means that you could say we have the territory and the resources, and you have the population, and it could be Canada will strengthen the United States, the fusion thereof, and the United States will strengthen Canada. And you bet the greatest state, but it's not going to be one state. It's going to be by Providence 13. Just like the 13 original. Because the king is absent. And here in Quebec, we're still going to have to do this great compromise, which we did, with the French language. Because here we got 9 million French Canadians, Quebecers, like myself, who love that Celine Dion bilingual rock and roll, you know. So that is just something which we have to do in the Concordian, that the king is absent, and it's not the way to invite Canada. But now, what for my fellow Canadians, what the problem is that we are designated since last Friday, August 1st. An unusual, an extraordinary threat. An unusual and extraordinary threat due to the fact that fentanyl, it's stated there in the White House official press release, to justify the increasing from 25% to 35% tariffs on Canada, that supposedly fentanyl has tripled. The crossing from Canada into the United States of fentanyl has tripled since last fiscal year. Fentanyl crossing into United States by proportion is not that much. But what is true, and this the RCMP has warned us, and even factually, we know it to be so due to the fact that the biggest ever super lab fentanyl operation super laboratory in history of Canada has been caught to be in the United States. In Canada, is recorded history, the biggest ever super lab was dismantled and caught just last year, October 24th. October 24th. October 24th of last year. So that is true. That is a point of truth, you know. That is true. So that part is true. Right? That part is true. The other parts, how much it costs, supposedly it has tripled, it has increased. But nonetheless, what gives me shivers and what I am concerned about is that we are now designated as an unusual, an extraordinary threat. This is new for me. Although I predicted an international conflagration, I did not predict the deterioration of relations with the United States in such a manner. Now I'm just gonna go a little bit of hydration here. Just gonna hydrate. I imagine this. Really need to hydrate, super important. And tie my hair again, I guess. Keeps falling off. Maybe try the other one. The black one is a bit loose. I'm gonna try the pink one. Yeah, I love pink. Play that rainbow. Auctioning both the black one and the pink one for $1 million. Gonna have to put it on and see where it is. Let's see. Fourth knot. Yes, that's better. I really need to drink some water before I continue the discussion and continuing our march. Gonna hydrate. Now put the backpack back on, and super important, you know. Yeah, that's the sun, the king, the pope. Strong, powerful. Always rises, always sets, mind you. Every second now there's a sunset and sunrise in the world. So, again, our main interest when it comes to relations, when it comes to the priority of what we must prioritize first in foreign affairs when dealing with other nations, and this applies reciprocally for both the United States, paradoxically, vis-a-vis us, and Canada vis-a-vis us, vis-a-vis them, vis-a-vis the United States. So of course that is something which is always a constant. I got 4 seconds. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Because I made it just in time to cross. Gotta give a salutation to the public workers. We need to mass invest in the infrastructure and rehabilitation of our public sanitations, because a lot of the machines, the tools were built even in the 70s, some machines. So, our main priority is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other when it comes to external foreign affairs, not domestic. And that is for the USA. This is like the pi symbol, you know, the N. N, the letter N for neutral, natural, normal, Normandy, none. The N letter has 2 heads. It has like 2-headed and 2-faced. 2 heads, 2 faces. And there's the mountain again. See, we can see if this, we're miles and miles and miles away. Yesterday, that's where we were, the top there. That's where we were. See the antenna there? And that's miles. That's many, 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 many miles away. See? The mountain there, that you can see the antenna there, the headquarters, is many miles. It's like 20 miles from here. It's far off. You can see it far off. Even outside from the island, you can see it from different angles. So our main interest, you have to say yes to this, is to have the best relations with each other. United States and Canada. That is just what it is. That is just what it is. You cannot say no, right? You cannot even argue with that statement. So that's why it's a constant, just like the pi symbol, which represents the relation between the ratio and the diameter, the circumference of the circle. It's always 3.1416 and then it continues ad infinitum. That's a mathematical constant, not a variable, meaning that it's always the same. It will not change. And this has been the reality for us and my brothers and sisters in the USA, vis-a-vis us, and us versus vis-a-vis in relation to the USA, the United States also towards us, is that we have to strive to have the best economic, social, financial, political, military relations with each other. This is unique because of our geography. We got to the east, we got the Atlantic Ocean. To the west, we got the Pacific. The motto of Canada is from sea to sea, ad mare in masque ad mare. Well, it's actually ocean, ocean, ocean. Oceans are big seas, I guess, because during the Romans, it was mare, right? It was mare. So basically, also our historical common histories and future destiny, future joint destiny, future joint destiny, our future joint destiny, you know? So that is just how we have to interact with each other, and that is something which we have to interact with each other for the go, and that is something which we have to interact and interpolate, and of course do consistently and integrated in the complete manner of all the life forces and all the things that we have as individual and the collective of the 10, the 50, and the 3 to direct, to move towards reestablishment and even solidifying for the future, and even fusion, the North and the South via the Imperial Republican article of the Constitution of Imperial Republic's constitutional new constitution from the United States Constitution and the Canada, where we're going to strengthen also. What a mess here. And we need to strengthen, and we need to establish the joint public-private partnership in Concordium, and we need, of course, to appellate and continue to do our life situations and to continue the matters of life where we are. And I got a few seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. I guess I got a few seconds with that, and I found the bread on the go. It says best before 5th of August, but I guess if I eat it tonight, $6.25 for the bread. Oh, it's a raisin bread from 446 Saint-Charles Vaudreuil d'Arion. But that's why it was given away, because it's best before. But today we're the 7th. If I eat it today, I guess it's still good. It looks still good. I found it there. I found it. Whatever, I guess it's still good. And I guess we got a little bit of a table here, crooked table. It's missing a foot. I guess I'm gonna build my own table with that. And see, focusing on, thought it was saying Draconis, 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 but it doesn't. And here's, I guess, a little spot. Guess we're gonna bag it up later. It says August 5th, so I guess it's still good, and I'm gonna test it and see if we can do it, you know. Let's see if we can go rock and roll it with that. And that's always nice gardens for me to look, and always enjoying the little flowers like those in the corner there, and always mindful, because, you know, I love cranes. I got a crane fetish. Got a little bit of that crane fetish. Gotta sing some rock and roll for the crane operators, and yeah, if you're a crane operator, you're high up in my ranking because you enable the crane operators to build, of course, the skyscrapers. And I always think about how much I don't know and how much I'm willing to learn. But when I see cranes, there's always something, of course, which makes me, of course, appellated with the cranes, thinking about, of course, the workers who build, of course, all their collective civilizational complex and all the things which we have as a see all the buildings. So it enables us to build basically stories high, stories high. So it enables us to build those stories high, so we can go high up in the buildings. So building, of course, so high is something which is really important. So that is something which I always got to protrude in about, and always got to be mindful about the crane operators, because they got a little bit of that rock and roll with it, and they get it on the go, and they get it for those who get it on that construction works. And of course I will to build the Forgotten Goddess Temple and the North American Imperial Coliseum and the House of the Dragon and the House of the Dragon, and that's what it is with that. And of course the Forgotten Goddess Temple. What a cutie. House of the Dragon as well. House of the Dragon as well. The House of the Dragon and Rainbow People's Palace for my fellow neurodivergent community. And it's gonna require some cranes, some crane operators, rock and roll for them. So back to geopolitics, because I know that I love cranes, but at the end of the day, I don't know if I would be able to actually operate a crane that much, but I will be able to learn about it. But rock and roll. So there's no way around that statement. There's no way around that fact. Our main geopolitical interest is to have the best relations with each other. The best relations with each other. Economic, social, financial relations with each other. There's just no way around that, right? You cannot argue with that. You cannot argue with that. You cannot say no. You can only say yes. That is just a constant. The constant is such. The constant is such, has been so, and is so, and will continue to be so, Will continue to be so. It has been so for the past 75 years. It is so today, and will continue to be so in the coming years. Many decades. Many decades. Many decades. So that is just where we are, and that is just how things are in the reality of our geopolitical relations, our geopolitical theories. And I'm just gonna bag this bread in the backpack a bit. I think it's still good. Most likely still good, and if I can bag it a little bit here, I guess. Guess I can bag it here. Bag it. It's gonna taste it a bit because it's a bit on the over, so let's see. Yeah. Yeah. It's very good actually. It's gonna be my feast when I get back. Oh yeah. Gonna make sure I get that backpack on and I'll make sure I traverse. Actually, I can go through here. I can go through there, but I don't really want to go through there because I have to go straight. So it's best for me if I just proceed straight. Straight, you know? If I just proceed straight, stretch a little bit. Stretch a little bit and stretch the backpack and look at my shadow, I guess. From the light, you can see if somebody tries to viciously attack me by surprise again. I guess I'll see like a shadow and I'll move out of the way and do like that great iron, you know? Yeah. That's how we got. That's what we gotta get doing like that, you know? It's something which we have to get doing, man, you know? Something which we gotta get doing on that appellation, you know? It's always something which we gotta be crossing the street safely. I'm back to geopolitics now because I'm safely on the other side. Our main interest, this is reciprocal, is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. There's no way around that. You cannot argue with that. You cannot negotiate with that. That has been so since at least the end of the Second World War, the dissolution of the British Empire. Before that, the British Empire had more power over Canada. But the king is absent. It's time for the Republic, and that's what we got. And that's what we gotta do. So, of course, all our situational progress, where we are today, in the manner, of course, where we interject and where we, of course, appellate to get, of course, on the transitional level of things where we are, you know, to get it a conclusion and to resolve the situation, because it's alarming, and my fellow Canadians, I'm worried about your safety or continuing safety of, because of the designation which we have now. We've been designated in Canada as an unusual, an extraordinary threat by the United States. Read the White House. I put it in a short video. If you want to get more information, I put it in a short video. And of course there, Trump mentioned the fact that what has crossed this fiscal year in terms of fentanyl could have killed 16 million Americans. In fentanyl could have killed potentially 16 million Americans. That's like double the population of my province, Quebec. Can you imagine that? Just think about that for a second. Think about that. That is a lot of killing, a lot of millions of people. 16, that's what's mentioned here. That the fentanyl that crossed this year, 2025, fiscal year, and the fiscal year in the US is not over yet, could have killed 16 million Americans, and that the crossing of the fentanyl has tripled since last year. And of course the RCMP has warned us, and we've seen that production has increased. That production has increased locally. Last year, on the 24th of October, the statement was made clear by the RCMP, all the super lab which they dismantled, how much it could have, of course, killed, how many million Canadians it could have killed because of the 95 million capsules. 95 million capsules. And other seizures of other drugs which were seized during that bust in Surrey, BC, British Columbia, October 24th last year. So that is something which you have to consider, which you have to take into consideration, you know. That is just something which you have to take into consideration. Of course, you know, the appellation which we have, of course, the truth is that the RCMP has warned us for years. And even last year, the 24th of October last year, they seized the biggest ever super lab, dismantled the biggest ever. So it's serious, and we've been designated since the 1st of August as an unusual, an extraordinary threat to America. And now my aspiness takes me away to focusing on those numbers on the bus. I see it blurred, but I think it's 44 and 11. I think it's a 44 and then 0, 11. See? Yeah, that's what it is. 44, that's not the number of the bus, but 44 and then 0, 11. That's just aspiness, a little bit of focusing on weird details of certain objects, such as, for example, I would inspect here if there's any specific numbers or whatever the case may be, and the dimension of the box, and probably try to figure out the surface area or whatever else, mathematics, just things of such nature. So of course we have been designated now as an unusual, an extraordinary threat. So that is extremely worrisome. That is this I did not predict, and I've always been honest about this. I did not predict the deterioration of relations between Canada and the United States. What I have predicted is an international conflagration due to several layers of developments and past developments and historical antecedents that, of course, were not fully resolved. Conflicts from the Second World War that were not fully resolved. I predicted that they're going to restart. Recommence, and restart in the 20th century. So that, of course, is something which I had not predicted. I predicted that there's going to be this international conflagration based on correction. So my prediction was based on those levels of analysis that, of course, I had concorded that due to these unusual, unresolved conflicts of the 20th century, they're going to recommence in the 21st century. That is, of course, the whole appellation, and I'm just gonna go drink some water there because I'm thirsty and then get back on the route. So of course that was my prediction. Just gonna go drink some water over there in the route and go there. So that was my prediction, that humanity is set again towards the course of an international conflagration, and so made, created and produced a workout training program system, which was of course designed to go with such a scenario. Workout training program system. Oh yeah, although I drank from mine, I'm really thirsty, so this is something which we're gonna have to hydrate a bit. I'm usually waiting about 10 seconds. So I predicted an international conflagration. I did not predict that there's gonna be the deterioration of relations with the United States. So that I did not predict. HYDRAT. Hydrate. I better hydrate lest I collapse for health reasons, you know? Better hydrate lest I collapse. Maybe we're collapsing. The economy of Canada and the United States, both were collapsing, maybe. Not if we implement my RT, debt fusion theory, and my other Trinity theories, we won't. We're actually going to rise as an empire. Oh yeah, that's what I really needed. I just needed to do a lot of hydration. Now I can discuss fully and with more vigor the solutions, because we are at a point of course, we're at a point of no return. We're at a drastic point in time now. So back in 2019, I predicted that there's going to be a World War III, an international conflagration on the horizon. And so I made and created and designed a workout training program system which is simple, effective, and efficient, which myself have also performed, completed successfully more than 372 sessions of my own creative workout training program system. That's when I reached the 300 workout training program system. I turned the A of my surname into an O, because that's the motto of the Dragon Army. Nobody is born a dragon. Not even myself with a surname. Took blood, sweat, and tears, and thousands of push-ups, squats, and workouts, and to turn that A into an O. So that, my prediction of 2019, that there's going to be a World War III as is unfolding now, based on several layers of academic, intellectual, scholarly, and other, of course, levels of analysis, impertinence and pertaining to them. Of course, it's something which I have to note that was also an important point in those, was that the fact that many unresolved conflicts from the 20th century were not fully resolved in the 20th century, especially during the Cold War period. And of course that those conflicts are going to start again, and they'll restart again in the 20th century. So that is, of course, part of one of the premises of course, my conclusion. And one of important points was these unresolved conflicts are going to restart. So that is super important for one to know when I'm discussing it. And if you look at Ukraine, Russia, these are conflicts which dates from the Cold War, which lasted between March 1947 and December 1996. So almost 45 years. That's how long it lasted, eh? That's how long it lasted. Almost 45 years. The whole Cold War period lasted almost 45 years. That is a long period of time if you think about it. Just the Cold War. So of course that duration of time, almost 45 years, is something which the Cold War situational awareness and historical awareness of the whole war was that due of course to those realities and those unresolved conflicts. If you look at the conflicts in the Ukraine and Russia, the Ukraine-Russia conflict is a 20th century Cold War period conflict, right? Which was not fully resolved. It was not fully resolved. Right? Another conflict which was not fully resolved, if you look at the world, is of course China and Taiwan. Those conflicts are also part of the 20th century. Of course, Israel, Hamas. Hamas is an organization from the 1980s. The other one, of course, I love this, pretty cool. The other one, of course, is the Pakistan-India conflict. Now, as much as I know their histories, their ideologies, all their philosophies, I am a North American. Quebecer, Canadian, Quebecer, North American, because always think for the North American collective. And my strategies, the implementation of my strategies are for the North American civilizational complex, or what is called the North American civilizational complex. So having predicted what's happening now, again in a general manner, not overall details, what I did not predict was that there's going to be the deterioration of relation between Canada and the United States. So this is new for me as well. Although I have been challenging Donald Trump since 2018. Thank you to my anonymous friend for donating, gifting me those red gloves, auctioning them for $1 million. I put them to good use. Donating those red gloves, by which I have been and will continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match on the Canadian-US border. Flag spotted. Whenever I spot the flag of Canada there, I gotta show mine, tatted in the flesh. Probably had it tatted decades ago, 20 plus years ago, because my memory is on the blackout, eh? If you ask me my life prior to spring 2014, February, March, April 2014 is mysterious, a bit of a blackout with that, and that is of course something which I have to take into consideration, but it's not really that important, you know. What's more important is me coming out of my depression, losing between 80 and 93 pounds, creating that workout, and all the work, philosophical work, artistic work, intellectual work, and rock and roll work, and of course the Trinity theories, and the call, of course, for all to support the North American civilizational complex integration for Canada and United States fusing via my Trinity theories, the DRT, debt fusion theory, the CIT, citizen integration theory, the DFT, the democratic fusion theory via, of course, the other dimension, of course, to create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Draconis, aka integrated Imperial Legion for the SSD and the Dancing Goddess Army. It's my turn to cross now. The Imperial Integrated Dance League to be for the environment, and again I have to also consider now the realities that have changed, and that our relations with the United States have totally changed. Our relations with the United States have totally changed. I love those yellow flowers, those beautiful flowers there. So our relations with the United States now has totally changed. I did not predict the deterioration of relations with the United States. This I did not predict. It's new for me too, so I also got to account. But still Dragon versus Trump, still calling to build that biggest ever sports complex arena on the Canadian border, to be built by Canadian and United States workers joined together, and to be the biggest ever sports arena complex ever built in the history of the world. Canada and United States for sports in perpetuity, where the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB will have sportus in perpetuities. Well, we have going to have sports in perpetuity. The rehabilitation of our criminal population via the North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act is also important. The North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act, to build those 44 tunnels, mass cities, 44 mass underground cities, linked with tunnel structures, in case of a thermonuclear war, for the continuity of the North American population's survival. That is something which we have to build. That is something which we have to do. It's urgent. It requires our special attention, as we have now moved, and we are now moving, of course, towards an international conflagration of World War III, just similar to what I had predicted without having predicted the deterioration of Canadian-United States relation. So that I have not predicted, That I have not predicted. So that I did not predict. That I have to be honest about. I am, and this is new for me. However, we go back to the statement that our main, most important primary interests, both Canada and United States, is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial relations with each other. And we will, by the DRT and the fusion via the perpetual imperial union. It's pledge your allegiance, our family. And I gotta consequently get that crossing of the street here. I got 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. Made it just in time, I guess. Sometimes that's all you need, to make it just in time and cross the street brutally and safely and get those crossings, and crossing into that beautiful river here. We got the river, and it's always important, to get the river and to get a little bit of that river for it, and to masticate and be aware, of course, of all the situations that we are, of course, predicted. I predicted, of course, the international conflagration, and that is something which we gotta do. I'm gonna take a look at those flowers. What beautiful flowers there, and that is what we got, and that's what we're doing on that, Gonna get it for that, and see where the 4th is. That's Stevens. I'm looking for the 5th, That's what we go, and that's what we do, and that's what we do with that, and that's what we gotta rock and roll, man. Canadian Armed Forces there. Canadian Armed Forces. That's what we gotta do, and gotta get it for the 4th, cross the street prudently, you know. So that's all we have to, man. Just cross the street prudently here, you know. Something which we gotta do. See, look at that. We have to get on that, man. See, that's how we gotta appellate, man. And I always now put integrally in our meditation all these. See these? All the brains in the muscle. This is aspiness now. This is aspi brains. They just try to compute and categorize how many of these were built throughout the North American Collectif, of course. Think about it. All these, of course, which require the building, of course, require the building, of course, to build it, and of course, those buildings which are on the go, you know. See, the building of that, and that's how we got, and we gotta build it more, you know. The building of those, man. Look at that. See, that's why we got transmission lines, you know. Transmission lines. So how many transmission lines have been built in the past 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years? It's an open question, eh? The question is open, you know. It's something which we have to think a bit about, I guess, but it's not necessarily an in-depth requirement, because we might be able to speculate and know, of course, that there's thousands, tens of thousands, and that those transmission lines also go to the United States, because our electricity also goes to the United States, right? To the United States. Right, that's cute. Isn't that cute? To the United States, right? So that's why we can move electricity. And 1/5, 20% of our electricity goes, of course, to the United States. Goes, of course, to the United States, all the way to Manhattan Island. So those are, of course, open for sabotage and espionage, you know. And now that we're designated an unusual, an extraordinary threat, I'm gonna cross again because I want to be in the back of the sun. And this is one way, so gotta turn your heads left or right nonetheless, but still, I could make it too. Because you can come from the other side. If somebody doesn't know, you know, somebody doesn't know, you can cross on the other side. So that is, of course, just the layers of our potential openness, vulnerability towards exterior sabotage by foreign powers because of what I call DMAA or DMAA, direct military assistance or action. And this is referring to the NATO sphere, because we're part of NATO, and whatever countries of NATO has taken direct military action, such as providing arms to Ukraine, that may, or potentially to Taiwan or other countries, that makes us vulnerable towards internal sabotage internally by foreign governments to employ whether hackers. It happened, eh? Hackers and espionage. Just 2 weeks ago, Microsoft released such information, and that is something which is a possibility. And of course, our power lines, power supplies, right? Our food sources, our truckers, our highways. These are open for potential espionage and sabotage. We don't know if it's possible. Sleeper cells and foreign powers, which have the capability, could employ underworld criminal transnational organizations. Last year, the biggest seizure in RCMP's history, our federal police, which is the co-equivalent of the FBI, but has also several layers of national security involvement as well. The RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which I served in a past life, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Royal Canadian Mounted Police has seized those biggest labs last year on the 24th of October. So they can also be conjoined with governments, foreign governments, exterior governments. That's what it is. 4th Avenue is that way. La 4e Avenue, c'est par là.
Ah, il n'y a aucune idée, mon chum.
Ah, tu sais pas? Ok.
Je viens pas
Ok,
de ça.
ok. M'en me débrouiller tout seul d'abord. But he doesn't know. So that's French, you know. So that's what it is with that. So that's how we gotta correlate. So keep that into consideration. You gotta keep that into consideration. So keep that in mind, right? Gotta cross the head here. Turn your heads left and right, and gotta get it on the go. Yeah, I'm in the right direction. It's just not that far. I'm not really 100% because I have it there, but I have some written here, but that's what we're gonna get. Because Boulevard Champlain is that one, right? So in theory, now we're parallel. That means that it should touch the 5th Avenue, not 4th. I said 4th, last 4th in French, for directions, and I kind of know. Because for years and years and years, I've spent 1 year in the street, years and years with 1 foot literally in the streets, 1 foot in the libraries. If I check past my past libraries that I took, the books probably relate 90+%. 90% are probably related to geopolitics, a high 90%. For sure. I mean, history, geography, or something which we have to be doing. We have to be doing on that 20. That's a high percentage. That's probably what it is in the high 90%, 80+% of all my books. If I go, I guess, retrieve what I've taken out, let's say from 2014 to 2019. In those 5 years, probably 80+%, 4/5 are related to geopolitics in different ways, I guess, in different manners, but it's mostly probably related to geopolitics. So that's just the reality, and that's just what it is for me as an N.A.C.W.P and artist, athlete, philosopher, thinker, geopolitical theoretical analyst, and mystic who believes in reincarnations, who's now alarmed by the current situation and of us being in the position where we are vulnerable now, and we are designated. This is new. This has never happened. We're never designated it's the storm of the century, if you will, for the whole world, geopolitical, and especially for the North American Collective, because we are designated an unusual and extraordinary threat, right? And again, going back to the constant pi symbol, two-headed letter N, two face, two heads. That's how our empire, the fusion of Canada and United States, our coming Imperial Perpetual Republic, that's going to sign you Perpetual Imperial Constitution Act, is going to be with two heads, two faces, two heads, and that's just what it is with that, and that's just what we're gonna do. So that is just something which we have to organize and get, of course, fully implemented and fully integrated in our aspects. That we have to implement the DRT, the debt refusion theory has to be implemented. So because it's the solution, along with my CIT, citizen integration theory, another theories. Gonna cross the street safely here. Super important. Turn your heads left and right, super important. Just cross safely, because people are stressed and sometimes they come fast, Me too, I gotta slow down, because the children with the bikes. So I also gotta watch, because their safety, liberty first, Children are innocent, so drive slow, urban areas like that, close to parks like that, just slow down your car, drive slow, cars, parts can be replaced. Well, that's a beautiful garden, look at that. Isn't that just super aligned and super cool? I love it. So that is just what we have to do together, as a collective civilizational complex. We have to work together in the way that we're gonna fuse Canada and the United States in the future. And again, what is our main foreign affairs when it comes to foreign external affairs interest? In the number one spot is to have the best, most cordial economic, financial, social relations with each other. With each other, right? With each other, you know? With each other. With each other, right? With each other. In regards, disregard, in other places, second, third place of importance, if we are to hierarchically rate a rate of importance, are the others. But first is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, military, defense relations with each other. Canada with the United States, and the United States vis-a-vis us, and that is a constant, just like the pi symbol representing the N. Pi symbol representing the N. Fourplex. That is just what it is for us. You cannot negotiate with that fact. You cannot negotiate with that statement. That statement that is a constant, just like the pi symbol representing the two-headed N. Two-headed N, two-faced. That's why our empire, Imperial Republican Empire by the fusion Canada and United States, will have sort of two heads, two faces. And now that we're discussing that and we finalize on this alarmist and my concern that we are designated for the first time, at least in the 21st century. This has never happened. As an unusual Canada, we are designated by the United States. It's serious. As an unusual, an extraordinary threat to the American people. Right? So now the DRT, debt for fusion theory, which is the solution, and my DRT theory has to be implemented binationally for both Canada and the United States, because binationally we are, of course, facing similar economic problems. Four main economic problems are pressing on the majority of Quebecers, Canadians, and my brothers and sisters in the USA. Four main problems. For, well, in whatever enumeration you put these four, it could be different. You can place them by different order of importance as an individual, and then you can place them in different manners of importance, ratios of importance, if you will. Slow down if you hear the ambulance, just slow down a bit. If you hear the firefighters, police, just slow down, you know. Slow down the car and drive less fast. So these four main problems are, in whatever order again, the growing cost of living, the rents are increasing. The growing cost of living, the prices of most goods, many goods, are increasing. The prices of everything are increasing. The cost of goods are increasing. The cost of goods are increasing. The bread, the cheese, the eggs, the butter, the eggs, the butter, the eggs, the milk, they're increasing. The bread, the eggs, the milk, the cheese, they're increasing. The prices are going up. The prices are going up. Price of bacon, price of eggs, price of cheese, price of my wafers, price of chocolates. They're going up, they're increasing. Price of rents are increasing. So the overall cost of living is increasing. Right? It cannot be sustained. My rent also went up between 6 and 10, so I cannot complain for my rent. Isn't this just beautiful? Hey, engineers and workers who build all this, thank you. That's why we have electricity. Civilization is a privilege. That was my thesis back in 2023. The privilege of civilization. The privilege of civilization. And all the brains and the muscle, of course. The brains and the muscle to build, to build all this. This has been quite a privilege, to build all this. And this is across the 63, and these are open for sabotage and espionage as well, if you think about it. And we got enemies now. We got a lot of enemies, powerful enemies, which can employ even transnational criminal syndicate groups. And just last week there was a crash in the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police office in Montreal, and I thought it was terror related. We still have to learn more. I thought it was terror related, or that these transnational criminal syndicates were trying to send a message to us that they're established powerfully in Canada and that they don't fear us. They don't fear our police services, they don't fear our justice system, that they don't fear us, The powerful transnational criminal organization groups, powerful transnational criminal syndicates, that they don't fear us, Or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't, Maybe they don't. But we've been warned about this, And we've been warned about it for years and years and years by our RCMP, that there's a growing transnational criminal syndicates, that domestic fentanyl production has and is increasing. Whether we agree on this, Trump is XYZ, that's something else, because it's not crossing that much in the United States. But what is true is that the domestic production is increasing, and that cannot be negated internally, domestically. Domestically, it cannot be negated. And listen, people are losing their jobs. They're losing their jobs. And I guess a lot of people are majority, many of you, the 99.56%, the neurotypicals. I guess you're feeling a lot of what I felt in the past 7, 8, 9 years, 10, 11 years, I guess. So, but I have the solution. Oh, that's 6th Avenue. I was looking for the 5th. And there's a bridge which you're gonna take later. So I have the solution. I have the solutions. Not all the solutions, but some. So 4 main problems economically are pressing upon us. Growing cost of living. By the bread, the cheese, the butter, the eggs are increasing. They're increasing in price. The rents are increasing, right? The rents are increasing. So that's what we have to do. Of course, that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. We have to implement the DRT, the refusion theory, the debt refusion theory. DRT, the debt refusion theory, we have to implement. 4 main economic problems are pressing upon us, right? One problem, and in whatever order, whatever you place these problems, whether X, Y, Z at different levels, of course, at different levels of whatever the levels of their incurmitant are. There's the mountain. See? You can see it afar off. But here, we're miles and kilometers away from the mountain. See? That's the Mountain Mount Royal. See, that's many kilometers, many miles. That's why you can see it afar off. The headquarters, the throne of our empire, the headquarters of the dancing goddess Dragon Kingdom for the 10, the 50 and the 3, which we're gonna fuse by the DRT, via the DRT. There we were yesterday, at top there, where you can see that we passed. That is the big antenna, of course, that's where we passed by it. And that's where you can see it afar off. So that's the mountain, and here we're in a 5th Avenue. Okay, that's Fifth Avenue here? Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. Is that Fifth Avenue? Yeah. Yeah, it's the Fifth Avenue. There's no Fifth Avenue there, it says there, so that's the Fourth Avenue. And we're looking for the Fifth Avenue here. Okay, so we came at the right place then. This is what we were looking for. On Fifth Avenue. At the corner of Verdun. And then we're gonna turn on the other, we're gonna go deep on the other side and take it on the other road. So the four main economic problems are the growing cost of living, Myself, it went up my rent also by between 6 and 10. So I cannot complain. I think that for me it's justified. That it was between 6 and 10. For me it was justified. That it was between 6 and 10. Between 6 and 10. You know, between 6 and 10. So whatever the conclusion is, to conclude and to actually inform more, not to conclude because we're not at the conclusion yet. I like those tunnels like that. Not tunnels, but they're, you know, like, they look like tunnels, but they're tunnel bridges. They're not really tunnels. Those type of bridges, enclosed, I would call them enclosed architectural bridges. So these four main problems: the growing cost of rent, growing cost of living, everyday goods such as bacon, cheese, eggs, bread, even my wafers and chocolate and coffee. Of course, the other one, of course, is the stagnation of the salaries. The stagnation of the salaries. And the fourth one is, even now, somebody, of course, is doing their buying, the purchasing with their credit cards. Buying with the credit cards. Somebody's maxing out 4 credit cards now. Got 4 maxed out credit cards. Going on the 5th one. There's both Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the United States. There is the record-breaking debt levels. Record-breaking debt levels, right? The levels of debt now that we have now have reached a record-breaking level, right? There's, for both Canada and the United States, in the past year since COVID, that's all we see every bi-weekly, every month, every week, every other month. We see that in the news. It's record-breaking credit card debt for both Canada and the United States. So that adds a pressure to the 4. Growing cost of living, prices of eggs, bacon, cheese, coffee, chocolate is going up. Going cost of living. The living is going up. Oh my God, 4 seconds. Going cost of living. Credit cards. And growing rents. So whatever order, rents increasing. Growing cost of living by the price of goods, stagnation of the salaries and rents. So whether you put the growing cost of rents first, growing cost of living first, the growing credit card indebtedness, or the stagnation of the salaries, either of those four are the main pressing problems for both Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the United States. Now, what is the solution? The solution is, of course, my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, which integrates monetary integration theory. So inside the DRT, the debt refusion theory, is integrated the monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory, which was integrated in the European Union in the 90s. The Europeans, they got rid of their central banks in the 90s. The Germans, the Italians, the French, the Belgium and other countries, they destroyed their national central banks back in the 90s. They destroyed their national. They don't have a central bank anymore, right? They have a central bank made up for many countries together. Several countries together, they have that central bank together. So these are the facts and the reality of life, which we have to transmit, which we have to integrate, and which we have to implement. The DRT, because we're in an emergency situation. An emergency situation. Financially, we're about to lose. People are losing their jobs. People are losing their rents. Food banks is a record level since the past 3.5 years during COVID. Food bank use in Canada, growing cost of rents, more homelessness. Both Canada and United States, both increasing homelessness and increasing food bank use. But my brothers and sisters, also citizens, have to have the will. Because if we offer programs, and we will, for the rehabilitation of our fellow brothers and sisters citizens, and our brothers and sisters who lost their liberty, but it has to be a volition. It has to be willed by also the citizen to rehabilitate. The rehabilitation of my brothers and sisters, you also have to will for the rehabilitation, right? You have to have the will to rehabilitate. And that's it. You have to have the will to rehabilitate as well. So we're gonna take, again, my DRT theory includes monetary integration theory. Monetary integration theory is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. In the European Union, right? They created the central bank, the ECB, the European Central Bank, the ECB, in the 90s. Several countries put themselves together and they created the ECB, the European Central Bank. The European Central Bank. So they created that ECB. So that ECB acts as a multinational central bank, right? So we're gonna create a joint bank, Canada, United States, because my DRT, debt refusion theory, has to be integrated, has to be implemented binationally, right? There's just no way out of that. There's just no way out of that. It has to be implemented binationally. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. Just gonna go to see the river and back. Here, I'm gonna cross the street. That's Verdun. Here we're in Verdun. So you can see part of the river there. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. My $10,000, your $10,000, our $10,000. All the public and the private debt. We're gonna take it all, Canada coast to coast. We're gonna add it all together. So we're gonna add all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. We're gonna add it all together. I just want to sing what that is. I like the red. I'm gonna turn my head left to right. Oh, wow. Oh, I just wanted to see the red door. I like the red door. Whatever. It's kind of cool. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean. My $10,000, your $10,000. This is one way, but still turn your heads. So all the debt, public and private, all of that added all together. Converted into United States dollars. We're gonna add it with the United States dollar together. So all the debt converted to US dollars, we're gonna add it with the US dollars. All the public private debt converted into US dollars. Oh, free rivalry. Oh, it's some French books. Oh, that's cool. Steinbeck. The French version of The Grapes of Wrath by Steinberg was there, so I'm good in French, I don't need. So all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, we're gonna add it with the United States debt. We're gonna add it with the United States dollar debt. All that money is gonna create a new central bank, right? Well, actually, we're gonna take all the public and the private debt of Canada, convert all the public private debt of Canada into US dollars and add it with the US. And that money, that's gonna be the initial money supply, plus of course the money that's in circulation for a new central bank. Whatever we call this new central bank, let's say the Imperial Republic's central bank, because we're gonna fuse and sign the Perpetual Imperial Constitutional Union Acts and create a new central bank, and we're gonna issue the UE. That's why we need a mass public-private partnership in order to do so. Blackstone, BlackRock, and Blackstone, and Bill Gates, Mike, of Microsoft, and all corporations of technologies and banking institutions, both public and private. And we're going to create a new currency. So all the public-private debt of Canada and United States jointly will create a new currency called the UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The UE, the universal exchange unit, is going to have the value of the US dollars. The UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. The U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. The universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollars. The value of the US dollar, we're going to make an interest rate level of 10%. 10% of 10%. We're going to, oh, that's a nice red. We're going to put a 10% interest rate level, right? So we're going to put an interest rate level of 10%. It's not going to be able to be more than 10%. It could be less than 10%, but not more, by principle. So this is going to be the new principle. New principle. 10% interest. 10% interest. That's what it's going to be. 10%, 10% interest. So we're going to have the UE, the universal exchange unit. The universal exchange unit in circulation, which is going to be the new currency. The new currency. That's going to be the new currency, and the appellation, of course, of the new currency, which is going to be the UE, the universal exchange unit. So that is something which has to be. This is a nice street here. You can come enjoy a little bit of Montreal, Quebec, French culture here. And there's a notary. I don't know if it's still functioning, the notary, but whatever the case may be. So all the public-private debt converted into US dollars, that's going to be the UE. A new institution, a new central banking institution, which is going to serve as a national central bank, but is going to be binational and Imperial, Republican, public-private partnership and constitution. And with that money, we're going to, of course, rebuild and recreate, of course, the North American civilizational complex, build the bridges, build the potholes, rebuild the aqueducts, build more hydroelectric dams, rebuild, and build on the go with that, and rebuild massive infrastructural buildings that we're going to do together. Mass rebuildings, build more hydroelectric dams, build more finance people to work out, train, exercise as well, because it does great good. And we're going to get rid of the border. So we're going to totally get rid of the border. Look at those beautiful yellow, white flowers in the yellow. So we're going to get rid of the border completely. We're going to make a census of the population. So a mass census of the population of Quebec, Canada, United States. So this mass census of the population for both the 63, the 10, the 50, and the 3, we're going to create it. And we're going to create a new passport, a common passport for the 10, the 50, and the 3. So we're going to create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the 10, the 50, and the 3. That is something which we have to appellate and we have to integrate conclusively, and of course in all the appellations that we are to do today. It starts with me today because we're on the verge of a public financial collapse. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen the coming days. That's Utah, wow. Yeah, in Utah, that's one of the 50. And that's how we have to fuse together. And we're going to have to fuse together on the go. So that is something which we have to do. Always something which we have to do together. And we have to do it go on the side of the things of which we are appellation. And we have to get it doing. So basically, this is part of the bipolar geopolitical strategy, not to be confused with bipolarity as in the psychiatric psychological condition. It has nothing to do with that bipolar condition, nothing to do with bipolarity in the sense of a psychiatric mental condition. It has everything to do with the bipolar condition, not with the condition of the psychiatric condition, but it of course related. Get it on the other side. It has to do, of course, with the condition for our coming empire. And now we're gonna go towards the sun again. The sun is on the other side. So we're gonna do a little bit of different today, in and out here, and then we're gonna go on the other side. So now we're gonna go towards the sun and zip it in. So we're gonna create this new central bank, the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit. We're gonna create the North American Civilizational Complex, and that's what we're gonna have to be doing on that. So we're gonna take all the public-private debt. That money is gonna be the initial money supply. We're gonna create the Imperial Republic Bank. We're gonna issue the euro. We're gonna get rid of the border, create a common passport, do a census, see which we can give a tribute, give some amnesty to certain individual citizens who had been living here in both Canada and the United States since, let's say, past 7 years, and start building those 44 tunnels, and also mass finance tourism, mass finance the rehabilitation of the criminal population, and mass finance some social housing, and build the fort, the North American, the Imperial People's Coliseum, Republican People's Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, where my 49ers lost in Super Bowl 47, aka Blackout Bowl, and of course mass finance tourism, intra-imperial tourist, via the implementation of my DRT, the debt refusion treaty, and the creation of the UE, the Universal Exchange. We're going to be able to do lots of good, lots of good, so much good. Public-private partnership and mass financing fitness, mass financing tourism as well from across the 63, accorded every quarter. Let's say if citizens are accorded XYZ days, whether they go anywhere in the 63 with hotels paid and meals paid, and we got to open up all the fast food for the Dragon Army, aka Imperial Republican Legion, once we're going to fuse also the FBI and the RCMP into the Imperial Republic Police Service, Imperial Republic Police Service, Imperial American Republic Police Forces, the Federal Police Forces, merge, fuse the RCMP and the FBI, continue with the French language here, build more hydroelectric dams, mass finance citizens fitness, mass finance citizens to work out, mass finance training, mass finance exercising, mass finance tourism, mass finance the good rehabilitation of the criminal population by build those 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. This is something which we gotta build, and we gotta build on those 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war, and that's what we have to be doing like that. And we have to be drilling 24/7, and that's what we have to be doing on that, and we have to get doing on the Rock&Roll, man. And here we got a nice boutiques and places where you can just enjoy living and having fun and eating some good food, if you're so related. I think 6 years ago we came at a little festival here. It's kind of a nice place. So it's called Wellington Street, and it's very nice. I like it. You can go east and west, east and west. You can do east and west it on the go, but that's something which you have to be in mind. So now I'm just gonna cross again on the other side, I guess, if I can get some sun, but I'm gonna march some steps to watch for that car so I don't get hit by the car. I guess it's not definitely necessary, because until I get to the other side, see a little bit sun. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, super important. The debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, super important to implement it, and of course create this UE and mass finance citizens fitness activity, mass finance fitness activity, mass finance working out, training, exercising, and something which we gotta be doing like that, and that's how we gotta get doing like that for the go, and that is just something which we gotta be thinking ourselves about doing as soon as possible, because we are on the verge of a financial collapse. Economically, the majority of the population suffers from the four aforementioned stresses: growing indebtedness, growing cost of living, growing rent costs, and credit cards being maxed out, and that is something which we do. We be maxed out. And that's a kind of cool van. Look at this cool van. Sometimes you imagine some nice vans. Look at that. Isn't that super cute? That's cute. I would love to see whether few hundred built for the Dragon Army. So we're going to create these two complementary covenant institutions, the Imperial Republic, Security, Service and Defense Legion, for total security, total service, total defense, SSD, Security, Service and Defense, and the fourth dimension, emergency responses, because we see that Mother Nature hits us a little bit hard. So that's the solution, the DRT, the debt refusion theory, you know, something which we have to do, and that is something which we have to appellate. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, the UE, that is just what we gotta implement, what we got to do together, you know. So rock and roll, take your allegiance, our family. That's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we gotta get on that go, man, you know. It's something which we gotta get that drill, and sometimes which we just gotta do, you know. We have to do it. We have really no choice. Both Canada and United States, we stand to gain a lot. So we're gonna get completely rid of that border. There won't be any more border. There's not gonna be any more borders. There's not gonna be any more border between Canada and United States. We're gonna fuse, and we're gonna create this SSD legions, Security, Service and Defense Legion. That's just what we're gonna do. Thank you. Pledge allegiance, support in any way, shape, capacity, or form. Oh, this is an N.A.C.P thing. Now I'm trying to calculate the ratio between those four spoons and the one in the middle. So from that distance, from which side? The top, the head, or the bottom, right? And then which with the top or the bottom. So we have several details to add. But see, there's 1 spoon, 2, 3, 4, and in the middle there's 5. It kind of looks a bit like the, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kind of looks a bit like the Scorpio constellation, or even a bit of other constellations, but I'm not going to go into a mystic relation. Is this that my mind saw and popped up some mathematical calculations in my mind, in my brain, in relation to the proportionality mathematics. It's just N.A.C.P brains. N.A.C.P brains can be weird like that differently, but if an N.A.C.P would have been there, we would have probably conversed for like half an hour, just try to figure out, reach to some mathematical conclusions, the both of us, and could have had such discussions in the matters of which we would have been relating our point event in the life with the event. So I gotta hurry because I got 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. Made it just in time. So the DRT, the debt refusion theory, for the creation of the UE, that's all we have to do, and that's all we have to appellate, and that is something which we have to conjugate together, the togetherness. So that is just, see what that means in French, ruelle verte, that says green space. So that's French. See, ruelle verte, that's French, it means the green. Ruelle comes from the street. Ruelle means street. So if you come here in Quebec, know that we love our French, and you might see only French, so that's why I invite you. If you need some translations, I'm always open, you know. Not a problem for me as a Quebecer Canadian, you know. But that's what you just saw there, ruelle verte, so that's what that means. Anyways, so the DRT, again, the debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, is something which you have to fully understand, that we have to implement it as soon as possible. Because, of course, the relations which we have today, which are related to our situational financial matters, are such that we have no choice really but to implement it. As you see the Quebec flag there, that's Quebec, and that's right here French, you know. So we're gonna get to French in a bit, but now we're just gonna summarize the DRT, debt refusion theory, for the creation of the UE. So all the debt, public and private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna convert all the public-private debt into US dollars. All of it together. All the public and the private debt into US dollars. All the public and the private debt, we're gonna convert it, add it with the US, but convert the public-private debt of Canada, including my $10,000. I don't have credit cards myself, I have a credit line. So we're gonna convert it all into US, add it with the US. That money, plus the money in circulation, is gonna be the initial money supply for this new central bank, which we're gonna issue the UE.universal, U.exchange, UE. It's going to have the value of the US dollar. And with that money, the creation of this new currency and this new central bank, we're going to establish a new world order, which is going to be part of this is, of course, the DRT is part of the bipolar strategy. Not to be confused with bipolar as in the psychological condition, but it's the bipolar strategy, the geopolitical strategy for the North American collective, the North American collective civilizational complex for total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion. Benevolence, dominance, and dominion. Benevolent dominance, the TBD, the TBDD, 4 letters, TBDD, for the total benevolent dominance and dominion of the North American collective, of the world, that is, geopolitical world, by total implementation of the DRT theory, which we have to implement it together for us to be launched in this new world order, where we have, via the fusion of Canada and the United States into the perpetual imperial union, which is going to include Quebec, where we're going to continue to make what I call the great linguistic compromise of the French language. But we have to implement the DRT, and it's part of my bipolar geopolitical strategy. Again, don't confuse bipolar. When I say bipolar geopolitical strategy for total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion, don't confuse it with the bipolarity complex or condition or situation in the psychological psychiatric sense. It has nothing to do with the psychology or psychiatric sense. And as bipolar geopolitics, it has to do with the strategy, the geopolitical strategy. So just to clarify, because it could be confused with the psychological psychiatric condition, it again has nothing to do with that. Forget when I mention bipolar, unless I mention that I'm discussing, and then you'll know by the use of the terminology that I'm discussing the psychological psychiatric condition known as bipolarity. Until then, know that it is only related to my bipolar geopolitical strategy. Bipolar is in the fusion of Canada and the United States, which are coming Republican Empire, with the establishment of the DRT, in implementing the DRT and the creation of this new central bank of Canada and the United States, the joint central bank, and we could expand it because Mexico is part of North America, and Haiti, Dominican Republic, and the islands, etc., etc., etc. We're first Canada and the United States for the total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion. Benevolent dominance and dominion. So that, of course, situational awareness of where we are compromittently and in all the appellational situations where we find ourselves today. That is something which, of course, you have to totally relegate and totally understand in the complementary, covenant, cooperative manners of where we are today. That is something which you have to fully comprehend and integrate and meditate upon and support fully. Pledge your allegiance to our family. We have to do it. For our coming Imperial Republic, it's going to have like 2 heads. It's like 2 heads, yes, 2 heads, 2 faces, just like when I mentioned the N, the pi symbol for the relations between the circle and the circumference. Such our coming empire will have kind of 2 heads, 2 faces by the fusion of Canada and the United States, the 10, the 15, the 63, and the creation of these 2 new complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the international or the Imperial Republican SSD Security Service and Defense Legion, with the integrated or Imperial Dance League for total environmental education and purpose. French que la belle province. Bienvenue Québécois et Québécoises. Je vous encourage, bien sûr, à faire de l'entraînement physique. Vous savez déjà que je vous encourage toujours à faire de l'entraînement physique. Je suis parti à faire mon entraînement physique. Beau coucher de soleil, ou peut-être le soleil se lève. On voit la montagne. Je vise la montagne de Verdun. C'est loin la montagne, c'est quand même des kilomètres, mais c'est sûr que c'est la montagne à l'autre bord qui est ma deuxième maison, la Mont-Royal, qu'on voit où j'étais hier. Fait qu'en vous encourageant à faire de l'entraînement physique, en vous pointant la montagne, la deuxième maison, c'est sûr que d'ici, c'est des kilomètres, mais on peut voir la montagne, ma maison, c'est pas juste la mienne, c'est pas juste la mienne, mais c'est le siège social de notre Empire, Union républicaine de l'Empire, qui viendra, que je vous fais appel, bien sûr, à tous et toutes à soutenir. Et bien sûr que même en ce moment, si je vis une crise financière, je vis un stress financièrement en ce moment. Mon seul stress est financier de point d'économique. Vous savez que moi, je vis avec une condition de neurodivergence. Ce n'est pas une maladie, encore une fois, l'Asperger's, l'autisme fonctionnel. Même avant-hier, j'avais une discussion avec un citoyen, je ne sais pas exactement si c'était un citoyen ou non, mais c'est sûr que c'est peut-être un citoyen avec lequel je parlais. J'ai changé comme 4 minutes d'échange, puis après 44 ou 45 secondes, j'ai mentionné que j'ai l'Asperger's, puis il a dit « Ah ouais, je connais, c'est une maladie, puis j'ai dit « Non, c'est pas une maladie, s'il vous plaît », puis après ça, il a fait pause, il a pensé un peu, puis il a dit « Ah ouais, c'est vrai, c'est pas vraiment une maladie, c'est une condition neurologique », puis j'ai mentionné exactement, c'est une condition neurologique, de différence de neurologique, ça fait que à cause de ces mutations du niveau du cerveau, j'ai de la misère dans certaines choses, la compréhension sociale, et je vois le monde différemment. Fait qu'en voyant le monde différemment, c'est sûr que nous, on interagit d'une manière différente avec les autres. C'est sûr que des fois on peut être direct ou on peut dire les choses direct un peu. Ça paraît comme c'est... ça peut paraître offensif, mais c'est pas par vouloir être offensif ou offenser les gens, c'est juste la manière que nous on procède. C'est sûr que moi-même, ça faisait bien des années, ça faisait 8, 9, plus que 9 ans, là, comme l'avait dit, diagnostiqué de manière plusieurs citoyens, concitoyennes, personnes qui me l'avaient dit et qui m'ont fait de mention que j'ai l'Asperger's. On m'a dit, tu sais que tu as l'Asperger's, tu es neurodivergent, etc. Puis ça faisait longtemps, ça faisait bien des années que j'ai pas voulu accepter celle-là. Moi, ça m'a pris bien des années, là. L'accepter, là, ça m'a pris bien des années à accepter ça, par exemple. Pour moi-même, ça m'a pris vraiment bien des années pour accepter ça. Ben des années, là, c'était quelque chose que j'ai pas voulu accepter de manière que si moi-même pour l'accepter celle-là, mais c'est ça que j'ai pas voulu accepter, ça. J'ai pas voulu l'accepter, tu sais. Je dis non, c'est pour porter un stigme, tu sais. Porter un stigme, là. J'ai pas voulu l'accepter jusqu'à présentement, fait que ça m'a pris quand même un couple d'années, 3 ans et demi avant que je l'accepte, puis je le vois, s'il vous plaît, il faut nettoyer ça. Oh, j'ai un couple de secondes pour me rendre, et je vais faire un effort pour passer, pour que je passe. Ouais, je me suis rendu, puis là je vais passer de l'autre bord, si je m'en vais par là. Comment qu'on va faire? Je pense qu'on va faire un petit zigzag, là. En s'en allant vers le soleil, ça va marcher d'une manière un peu différente. C'est sûr que je prends un petit chemin que d'habitude je ne prends pas, mais c'est sûr que je me dirige quand même à la même place. Fait que bien sûr, dans cette situation, mais je pense que je suis bien mieux d'aller par là. Je vais tourner de bord, puis je vais concentrer à m'en aller par là, où j'ai été par là. Comme ça va être plus sécure pour l'être bien sûr dans ce point de situation, pour que je me rende bien sûr ici. Bon, fait que oui, je suis neurodivergent, je vis avec cette condition, comme je vis avec la perte de mémoire, de la misère à me souvenir de ma vie avant 2014. Printemps à peu près février, mars, avril 2014. Printemps 2014, avant, ma vie avant, ça reste quand même un mystère. J'ai la misère à me souvenir de ma vie avant. Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Je m'en souviens que j'étais attaqué par surprise, une attaque vicieuse, je suis tombé, je cognais ma tête par terre. J'ai cogné ma tête par terre. J'étais tout ensanglé, avec comme le bras droit. C'est beau ça. J'avais le bras droit disloqué, puis j'étais allé à l'hôpital général juif, ils m'ont recraqué le bras, là. Ils m'ont mis sur des médicaments. J'étais comme dans un petit coma pendant un couple de jours, puis avant ça, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé, bien sûr? Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Je sais pas exactement. Peut-être que je faisais de la drogue forte, ou j'étais junkie, ou... Des fois, c'est l'alcoolisme aussi, boire trop d'alcool, là. la quantité d'alcool des fois. L'alcool, ça peut causer des pertes de mémoire. Là. Avant le printemps 2014, peut-être j'ai passé un couple d'années, bien sûr, à boire. Fait que si je buvais souvent, là, je l'ai alcoolique, c'est sûr que ça aurait pi causer la perte de mémoire. Là. Mais ça me dérange pas, j'ai une bonne mémoire, mais c'est sûr que ça fait déjà longtemps. Là. Si on pense à 2014, là, printemps, ça fait déjà 11 ans et 4 mois. Fait que c'est pas vraiment important. Mais je vis avec ça, je vis avec mes cicatrices, je vis avec cette neurodivergence, avec ce souvenir de trompe, d'attaque vicieux par surprise et d'autres choses incompréhensibles. Et je suis bon dans la géopolitique. Nous, les Asperger, les N.A.C.P.P, c'est pas une maladie mentale, encore une fois, c'est pas une maladie, pas du tout. C'est une condition neurodivergence. On voit les choses différemment. J'ai de la misère dans certaines choses, mais je suis bon aux intérêts spéciaux. Nous, les N.A.C.P.P, on a 3 problèmes. Les problèmes majeurs qui nous touchent, c'est le manque d'amis. C'est pour ça que je dis, je veux pas perdre votre temps. Des amis avec bénéfice seulement. Ou ça, prenez ça. Ou sinon, prêtez allégeance les gens. Soutenez mon rêve, qui est fondamentalement un appel à un partenariat public-privé à travers le collectif de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord. Puis, bien sûr, le manque d'amis. Puis, bien sûr, parallèlement, j'ai pas besoin tellement d'amis, mais juste des amis avec bénéfice. Pour ne pas perdre votre temps, vous le savez, je vais vous le dire. De toute manière, si je vous rencontre, individuel ou sinon, soutenir un rêve, c'est plus le travail que je fais que c'est important. Puis l'autre problème chez les Asperger, c'est pas seulement le manque d'amis, c'est que le taux de suicide et de sans-emploi est très élevé. 9 fois plus dans ma communauté. Puis tenez-vous compte que les Asperger, nous, on est une petite communauté de moins de 1%. Hein. Il n'y a même pas 1% de la population qui ont l'Asperger. La population, c'est environ 0,44%. 0,44%. Il n'y a pas bien les Asperger. Il y en a qui ne savent même pas c'est quoi. Ils disent, je sais pas c'est quoi, j'ai jamais entendu parce que c'est pas commun, tu sais. Fait que c'est pas commun, puis ça fait que des fois, les gens ils font la confusion que c'est une maladie mentale. Puis on est différents. Les choses, la communication non verbale, sociale, tu sais, on a de la misère avec ces choses-là, nous. Fait que c'est pour ça que moi aussi, j'étais en dépression. Hein, j'étais suicidaire pendant un couple d'années. Qu'est-ce qui m'a fait sortir de ma dépression? Bien sûr, c'est traverser le Canada. De côte à côte, en traversant le Canada de côte à côte. Ça m'a fait sortir de ma dépression, tu sais. Traversant le Canada de côte à côte, ça m'a fait sortir de ma dépression. En 2017, puis avant ça, j'étais en dépression pendant un couple d'années, bien sûr. Fait que bien sûr, dans ces couples d'années, fait qu'en 2014, entre 2014 et 2017, l'été 2017, cet été, là, le 15 août, va faire déjà 8 ans. Traverser le Canada, là, ça m'a fait établir un esprit de corps solide avec le Québec, le Canada, les États-Unis aussi, en tant que Nord-Américain, Canadien, Québécois. Avec Asperger, que je suis aussi artiste, athlète, philosophe et analyste théoricien en géopolitique. Bien sûr, c'est pour faire la situation de vivre aujourd'hui. Puis le taux de chômage de sans-emploi il est inacceptable. Les Aspi, là, les Asperger, là, écoutez ça, les statistiques de sans-emploi, 80%, 84 sur 5, 8 sur 10 des Aspi, des Asperger sont sans emploi. Vous comprenez? Puis j'ai bien de l'emploi, on a de l'emploi, c'est juste qu'on a de la misère à garder parce que, tu sais, dans l'emploi, des fois, tu as besoin de socialiser, là. Fait que nous, on n'est pas si bons dans ces choses-là. La compréhension non-verbale, ou si on fait mal par nos gestes, nos paroles, des fois, qui peuvent être directes, tu sais. On va dire des fois une réponse, quelqu'un va nous demander quelque chose, puis peut-être on va dire d'une manière directe des choses que ça peut nuire. Fait qu'il faut me le dire. Il faut me le dire, puis si vous me le dites, ben je vais le faire. Je vais faire mon possible, bien sûr. Je vais faire mon possible, bien sûr, pour ne pas continuer, pour dire, ben je m'excuse, des choses comme ça. Bien, c'est des choses que je m'excuse, tu sais. C'est des choses que je m'excuse, bien sûr, dans ce point de sentiment d'avoir, bien sûr, dans ce convergence que je suis moi-même ici. Puis, je fais partie de la communauté LGBTQ aussi, mais je suis androgyne. Hein, Monsieur, madame, 50-50, je me cache pas, ça fait des années, je suis ouvert, hein, puis au moins 2017, fait que j'ai sorti de ma dépression, fait que j'ai eu bien de l'emploi, j'ai bien aimé, surtout de la COVID, mais c'est garder ces emplois-là, ça a été difficile. Des fois, ça a duré 4 mois, 3 mois, 2 semaines. Ces 3 problèmes-là pressent. Puis on a qu'est-ce qu'on appelle des intérêts spéciaux, aussi connus des intérêts obsessifs. Mais si j'utilise le terme obsessif, ça ne rend pas justice vraiment, parce que moi, là, quand je passe des heures à faire de l'interprétation, des analyses, des théories de la géopolitique, c'est sûr que ça peut paraître comme une obsession, mais même si je suis intense, super concentré, super dedans, super engagé, c'est sûr que c'est pas l'équivalent de comment vous voyez les choses, les neurotypiques. C'est d'une autre manière. Fait que cette différence, c'est toujours une différence qui peut quand même être visible. C'est pour ça que j'utilise le terme intérêts spéciaux. Puis oui, quand je fais de la géopolitique, des analyses, de la théorie, je suis bon à ça, c'est mon intérêt spécial. Puis les aspects, il faut qu'ils soient encouragés, puis il faut les soutenir le plus possible dans ces des intérêts spéciaux, le plus possible dans ces intérêts spéciaux. Dans ces intérêts spéciaux. Il faut les soutenir le plus possible. Il faut les soutenir le plus possible dans ces intérêts spéciaux de la manière qu'on puisse le faire. Moi, je ne requiers pas beaucoup de soutien moi-même parce que vous voyez, à cause de ces intérêts spéciaux puis cette routine rituelle, ça quand même, ça nous prend beaucoup de notre temps aussi au quotidien. Fait que des fois, on néglige les choses. Les autres choses, on peut les négliger quand même. C'est ça la situation qui peut causer un peu de trouble, si on veut le dire, des problèmes vis-à-vis que, à cause de ces intérêts spéciaux, nous, là, on peut avoir la misère dans certaines choses et on se préoccupe moins d'autres choses qu'on est intense dans bien sûr, ces intérêts spéciaux qu'on appelle. Puis c'est sûr, ça varie. Hein. Moi, je fais partie de cette... On est une petite communauté, hein, 0,44%. Il n'y en a même pas 1%, là, même la moitié d'un pourcentage. Puis pour moi, c'est la trinité 24/24. C'est chaque jour avec... ouais, c'est beau, ça. C'est la géopolitique, le rock&roll et l'entraînement physique. Le sport, c'est mes 3 intérêts spéciaux principaux. Fait que l'entraînement physique... Moi, je m'engage au quotidien pendant des années. Depuis que je suis sorti de ma dépression, j'ai perdu entre 80 et 93 livres. J'ai perdu bien du poids. À part ça, c'est le rock&roll et la géopolitique. Encore une fois, là, je vais arrêter de parler de l'aspect-là. Je vais parler de mon intérêt spécial. Puis qu'est-ce que je suis en tant qu'analyste, théoricien, penseur et stratège de la géopolitique indépendante. OK? De la géopolitique indépendante. Fait que moi, là, j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant. J'ai prévu la situation qui se passe maintenant. Je l'ai prévu, la situation qui se passe maintenant, en 2019, en octobre. Par exemple, qu'est-ce que j'ai pas prévu, c'est qu'il y aura une détérioration des relations avec les États-Unis. Que j'ai prévu qu'il y aura une détérioration des relations avec les États-Unis. Celle-là, là, ça m'inquiète. Hein? Ça, j'ai pas prévu. Ça, c'est nouveau que je dois considérer aujourd'hui parce que dès le 1er août, là, vendredi passé, il y a 6 jours, là, avec les nouveaux tarifs qui viennent de rentrer aujourd'hui, là, on est désigné par les États-Unis, là, je peux le dire en anglais, comme un unusual and extraordinary threat. On est désigné comme une menace hors commun et extraordinaire. Une menace hors commun et extraordinaire. On est désigné, c'est nouveau au 21e siècle, c'est une grosse tempête de la géopolitique. Vous comprenez qu'on est en danger, vous comprenez qu'on est vulnérable, vous comprenez là, comment c'est sérieux, là, la géopolitique. Et bien sûr, c'est sûr qu'on n'a pas vraiment fait, on n'a pas, du point de vue du fentanyl qui rentre, c'est pas vraiment la quantité, mais c'est bien sûr, on dit dans cette lettre déclarée sur, bien sûr, le site officiel de le site officiel là, de la Maison-Blanche, qu'est-ce qu'ils ont dit? Que ça a augmenté 3 fois cette année, comparé à l'année passée, puis l'année fiscale n'est pas finie. Ça a augmenté 3 fois, OK? 3 fois. La quantité qui est rentrée l'année passée, c'était ça la justification, qui aurait pu tuer 16 millions d'Américains. 16 millions, là, c'est 2 fois la population du Québec. Vous comprenez qu'on est en danger, là? La position belligérante que le Trump, j'aurais pas voté Trump, j'aurais pas voté l'administration de Trump. Vous comprenez où que je m'en vais avec ça? On est désigné, là, une menace hors commun et extraordinaire. Puis il faut le dire, là, que la GRC, hein, ça fait des années qu'ils nous avertissent. Il y a de plus en plus de crimes des organisations transnationales, internationaux, là, qui proviennent d'ailleurs, de syndicats criminels qui se sont implémentés, intégrés, qui sont mis en place, qui ont ouvert leur affaire, qui se sont établis au Canada. De plus en plus, ça fait des années qu'on nous avertit, la GRC. Puis qu'est-ce qu'on a vu l'année passée? En 2024, qu'est-ce qu'on a vu l'année passée? Qu'est-ce qu'on a vu l'année passée? Le 24 octobre. Le 24 octobre. Le 24 octobre. Le 24 octobre 2024, on est désigné 24 octobre tenez compte qu'on est désigné comme là, le Canada, c'est nouveau, ça. La géopolitique, ça j'ai pas prévu qu'il y aura une détérioration de nos relations avec les États-Unis. J'ai prévu qu'il y aura une troisième guerre mondiale, soit une conflagration internationale, mais l'autre, j'ai pas bien sûr prévu ça. J'ai pas bien sûr prévu qu'il y aura cette détérioration des relations de même, tu sais. Cette détérioration des relations de même. Mais j'avais prévu qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale, ça, par exemple. Fait que là, bien sûr, pour continuer, bien sûr, la démarche, c'est qu'est-ce qu'on est rendu à faire aujourd'hui, puis qu'est-ce qu'on est rendu à dire, puis qu'est-ce qu'on doit établir comme solution, parce qu'il faut qu'on trouve des solutions. Principalement, par principe, et c'est rouge, ma couleur préférée. Nous, là, le Québec, le Canada, puis les États-Unis se réciproquent envers nous. Il faut tenir compte que notre intérêt principal, là, quand ça vient, si on établit une hiérarchie d'intérêts, c'est d'avoir les meilleurs intérêts. Quand ça vient de la politique externe, là, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations réciproques, nous envers eux et eux autres envers nous. Quand ça vient à la politique externe, je parle pas du domestique, OK? C'est d'avoir les meilleures relations économiques, financières, de défense, nous avec les États-Unis et les États-Unis avec nous. Puis ça, c'est comme le symbole pi. Ça représente 3,14, ça continue à l'infini, puis c'est une relation entre le diamètre et la circonférence du cercle. C'est constamment la même chose. Donc, qu'est-ce que je viens de déclarer? Que nous, là, on doit avoir les meilleures relations réciproques avec nous, avec les États-Unis et les États-Unis envers nous. Ça, c'est constamment pareil. Ça ne change pas, ça. Ça n'a pas changé depuis 75 ans. Ça n'a pas changé aujourd'hui, puis ça ne changera pas dans les prochaines décennies à venir. C'est pour ça qu'il faut régler ça le plus possible, parce que là, on est désigné une menace hors commun et extraordinaire à cause de la production domestique de fentanyl. Puis la GRC, ils nous ont avertis, la GRC, depuis des années, ils nous avertissent. Il y a de plus en plus de groupes transnationaux qui s'implémentent au Canada. Juste l'année passée, là, le 24 octobre là, 2024, l'année passée, là, qu'est-ce qu'on a vu? Que la GRC ont capté, ils ont démantelé, ils ont saisi un grand, super laboratoire, puis ils ont saisi 95 millions de pilules de fentanyl. 95 millions de pilules de fentanyl qui auraient pu tuer 2 fois la population du Canada. 2 fois, là. Il aurait pu tuer, là, mortellement, là, des décès, 2 fois la population du Canada. Puis là, les États-Unis, la semaine passée, l'administration de Trump désigne comme une menace extraordinaire. Bien sûr, face au fentanyl, une menace extraordinaire face au fentanyl pour que ça aurait pu tuer 16 millions d'Américains des États-Unis. Fait qu'on est désigné comme une menace extraordinaire et hors commun, là. Vous comprenez où je m'en vais, tu sais? C'est ça le problème. Il faut qu'on règle ça le plus possible. Là. On peut pas avoir d'autres solutions, tu sais. On peut pas avoir d'autres solutions. Il faut qu'on trouve les solutions, tu sais. Il faut qu'on trouve les solutions. Je vais aller voir l'automobile jaune, là, parce que j'aime ça jaune de même sur les automobiles. Puis rouge, c'est ma couleur préférée, mais c'est un beau jaune que je trouve ça vraiment beau. Cool. Chauffez les bains. Pesez pas trop sur la pédale quand vous êtes dans des... Quand vous êtes dans des places... Quand vous êtes dans des places comme... Qu'il y ait des enfants, là, mais ça c'est à sens unique, là, mais c'est un beau automobile, ça. Ouais, c'est un beau automobile, ça. 2 portes. Ouais, cool, hein? Et c'est beau, ça. Beau jaune, je trouve. Bon. Fait que là, je vais pas perdre le temps, continuer avec ça, mais pas perdre le temps vraiment, parce que c'est important, c'est clair, là, mais je veux dire, pas me divertir dans d'autres choses que je dois dire. La solution, c'est la TRD, puis qu'on continue de l'avance, mais pareil, vis-à-vis la TRD, théorie de la réfusion de la dette, ainsi que la théorie d'intégration monétaire, ainsi que la théorie d'intégration citoyenne, ainsi que la théorie de la fusion démocratique. C'est super important qu'on implémente, qu'on fasse l'implémentation de ces théories, bien sûr, le plus tôt possible. Parce que là, on a 4 problèmes qui nous pressent majeurement, et c'est beau ça. Bien sûr, réciproque, le Canada puis les États-Unis puis le Canada ensemble. Ces 4 problèmes, dans quel ordre qu'ils sont, qu'on va les établir, c'est sûr que ça n'a pas vraiment d'importance exactement dans quel ordre qu'ils sont. Ça, c'est vraiment beau aussi. Mais en première place ou en deuxième place, je ne vais pas les énumérer dans l'ordre d'importance parce que ça varie par citoyen, par citoyenne. Mais les loyers qui augmentent, moi-même, c'est augmenté entre 6 $ et 10 $. Je ne vais pas dire que je ne vais pas me plaindre moi-même, même si c'est 10, je ne vais pas dire que c'est 10, je ne vais pas dire que c'est 6, entre 6 et 10, mais je crois que pour moi, c'est justifié, puis c'est quand même pas le maximum, puis c'est quand même acceptable pour moi-même. Je ne vais pas me plaindre de cette augmentation dans mon cas, de mon loyer. Bien, l'augmentation du loyer, des fois, c'est 25%, 30, 40, la moitié au double même, tu sais. Fait que le loyer qui augmente, c'est aussi, bien sûr, l'augmentation du loyer. L'augmentation du loyer, la stagnation des salaires, l'augmentation des prix, les œufs, le bacon, le pain, le fromage, les biens alimentaires augmentent le prix. Puis 4e, ou dans quel ordre que ça soit, les cartes de crédit. Il y a un surendettement des cartes de crédit. Pour le Canada et les États-Unis, ça s'applique pareillement. Les cartes de crédit, là, les gens sont de plus en plus endettés, surendettement. Moi, j'ai pas de carte de crédit moi-même, j'ai une ligne de crédit de 10 000. Fait que la TRD, je vous l'explique. La TRD, c'est la T-théorie art, refusion de la dette. Dans ma TRD, c'est inclus la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Fait que dans ma théorie elle-même est intégrée cette théorie qu'on appelle la théorie d'intégration monétaire, qui est la théorie que les Européens ont fait de l'implémentation dans les années 90. Dans les années 90, les Européens, bien sûr, ils ont fait l'implémentation de cette théorie, la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Fait que je vous l'explique. Et bien sûr, à cause de ces 4 problèmes, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation ensemble. Fait qu'on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, mon 10 000, ton 10 000, son 10 000, toute la dette publique-privée, de côte à côte, de chien à chien, du Canada, des États-Unis. Toute la dette publique-privée, on va la prendre ensemble, toute la dette, toute cette dette-là, on va faire une refusion. On va faire une refusion. On va faire la conversion de toute la dette publique-privée dans la devise des États-Unis, de côte à côte, dans la devise des États-Unis. Toute cette dette-là, on va faire l'addition ensemble de toute la dette canadienne, incluant mon 10 000 à la Banque Royale. On va faire la conversion de toute la dette publique privée du Canada dans la devise des États-Unis. On va faire l'ajout avec la dette publique privée des États-Unis. Cet argent-là, ça va faire la création d'une nouvelle banque centrale. On va qu'on l'appelle la Banque centrale impériale, puis on va mettre en circulation l'unité d'échange universelle. UI. U.unité, E.échange universel. UI. U.unité, E.échange universel. La UI, on ne se tiendra pas en anglais, c'est pareil. L'unité d'échange universelle. UI. L'unité d'échange universelle. U.unité, E.échange universel. l'unité d'échange universelle, le UI aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. UI. Fait que U, unité, E, échange, U point, unité, E point échange, U point universel. L'unité d'échange universelle aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Fait que tout cet argent-là, ça va créer une banque centrale commune. Avec tout cet argent-là, on va reconstruire l'infrastructure, on va bâtir plus de centrales d'Hydro-Québec, financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, construire les 44 villages et systèmes de tunnels souterrains dans le cas d'une guerre thermonucléaire. Il faut qu'on se rende vite parce que c'est possible qu'on ait une guerre nucléaire. Possibilité d'une guerre thermonucléaire. Fait qu'on va rebâtir l'infrastructure, bâtir plus de centrales de l'Hydro-Québec, financer les gens au tourisme aussi, finir avec la frontière. On va finir avec la frontière. Comprenez? On va finir avec la frontière. On va faire un grand recensement. Et c'est beau ça, je trouve ça vraiment beau comment c'est fait, là. Avec le rouge comme ça, tout en fleurs avec le ciment. Fait qu'on va finir avec la frontière. Il n'y aura plus de frontières communes. Comme il n'y aura plus de frontières partout, ça va être une fusion. On va faire bien sûr cette fusion, on va faire un passeport commun, la création d'un passeport commun. Ce passeport commun, bien sûr, on va faire un recensement, on va voir tous les gens qui habitent ici, bien sûr, depuis 2017, 7 ans, plus que 7 ans. On va faire bien sûr ce grand recensement, bien sûr, puis on va faire bien sûr on va faire la création, pas justement de cette monnaie commune, mais bien sûr, on va faire la création de cette nouvelle réalité géopolitique. On va constituer, bien sûr, une réalité dans la géopolitique. Ensemble, on va faire un passeport commun, bien sûr. On va faire une refusion totale. Cet argent-là, bien sûr, qu'on va mettre en circulation, ça va être lui, puis on va faire bien du bien commun. Soit comme financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, rebâtir l'infrastructure, l'économie